be an
Canby, welcome to the 1st of August, August 1st, 2018 City Council regular meeting. If you please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this great community, for the leaders that are gathered here this evening. I want to thank you for the cool off in the weather that we have had. I pray for a little bit of rain here would be great. I want to say a prayer for the firefighters that are fighting fires across Oregon right now. It is a devastating situation here in Oregon and Northern California. Keep them safe. And I'm going to say a prayer for a couple of our community members that have had some very unfortunate passings of family members recently due to just sudden illnesses and tragic car accidents. Please just lift those families up, Lord. I ask these things in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on our agenda this evening is a presentation by Clackamas County regarding tobacco retail licensing. I'll leave that to you if you want to come here to the table. Your microphones are already turned on, which is great. Good evening.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us. I'll get this pulled up and let. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. My name is Dawn Emmerich. I am the Director of Public Health for Clackamas County, so thank you very much for allowing me and Dr. Present to present this information to you this evening. We have been, we call it the tour of the county. We've been touring the county and having several stops to talk about this very, very important issue. So again, thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. So we're going to spend the next few minutes talking about our youth and with tobacco retail licensing. So I'll give you a little bit of background behind it, and then I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Present to get into a little bit more of the detail and some of the health concerns that we have for our youth. So in January of 2018, Oregon, as you may know, increased the age to purchase tobacco in the state of Oregon. It's hard to believe that it's always been 18 for many, many, many years. And to purchase tobacco, purchase marijuana and to purchase alcohol, you had to be 21, but you were only 18 to purchase tobacco. So that law was passed and went into effect across the state. A second bill that was presented in Salem around the same time was to do a statewide tobacco retail licensing as a complement to that bill. In other words, right now, currently in the state of Oregon, if you are a retailer selling tobacco, you do not have to have a license to do that. You have to have a license to sell alcohol and you have to have a license to sell marijuana, but not for tobacco. So we had two different things happening. We had 18 years of age to purchase it, but we did not know where they were purchasing it because you weren't licensed. So with the age, with that bill, raising the age to 21, but the failure of the tobacco retail licensing kind of put counties in a quandary because how do you enforce retailers not to sell tobacco to anyone under 21 if you don't know who's selling tobacco? So with that bill that passed and then the one that failed, the failure of tobacco retail licensing across the state gave counties the opportunity to say, okay, we're going to take that locally and we're going to assess the feasibility of passing that law locally since the state was not able to do that. Currently, there are 4 counties in the state of Oregon that have passed a local tobacco retail licensing. Clackamas County, if successful, would be the 5th county in the state. And so we are happy to be a part of those 4 counties and leading the way. And so we're here tonight to tell you about that. We would like to get your feedback on this. And we think it's really important to do this engagement with you because it would be a countywide policy. And we want to talk with each of you. We want to get your feedback. We want to get your thoughts, your concerns, and that's why we're here tonight. Ultimately, we'd like your support. So far, out of all of the city councils that we have engaged with, we have gotten very positive reviews. In fact, one city council, one city, actually even said that they would even do a resolution, a local resolution supporting this, and would be willing to come and do testimony when the time comes for us to present this to the county commissioners to vote. So we have a lot of momentum around this, a lot of positive, because I think we all share the same desire to protect our youth. This is not about the 60-year-old. This is about our young people who are getting addicted to nicotine and to tobacco. And we know that the research shows, and this is what Dr. President's going to talk to you about, that if we can create even the smallest barrier to prevent our youth from accessing tobacco and nicotine, then we are doing our job as the public health authority for the county. So that is sort of, I'm going to just tee that up a little bit for you. I'm going to pass this over to Dr. Present, so you can just start on on this page here.
Okay.
I'll do your slides for you.
So again, I'm Dr. Sarah Present. I'm the Public Health Officer for Clackamas County, and I am a family physician in the Clackamas County Health Centers. I want to thank Dawn for giving that introduction. Our goals here today are to explain what tobacco retail licensing is and the benefits, and like she said, hopefully gain your support in doing this as a countywide approach. So what is tobacco retail licensing? Ultimately, it would require businesses to purchase a license to sell tobacco and nicotine products. What we provide for that licensing fee is education and support in doing the right thing. So we would have public health staff go and inspect each facility that has a license. I'll go into the details a little bit later, but one inspection is focused primarily on education. So we have a lot of education around how do you sell tobacco safely? How do you not make it attractive to minors? How do you put it in the places that will not catch the youth's eye and make them more curious? And how do you officially and successfully check IDs and teach your staff how to do that? It would require an annual licensing fee, which would cover the costs of administering the licenses, education, and conducting compliance checks. Education can also be done through online training and various other modules. The enforcement system would include regular inspections and penalties and possible suspension of their license if they were to have any violation. Any violation of a tobacco control law is a violation of tobacco retail and could lead to civil penalties. So in the Oregon Healthy Teens Survey in 2017, there are always questions about ease of tobacco of obtaining tobacco and how many people are using tobacco. We found that in 2017, amongst 11th graders in Clackamas County, 25% had used any tobacco in the last, or any tobacco product or nicotine in the last 30 days. 41% had used it at any point before they turned 18, and 1 in 3 said that it would be very easy to get tobacco. We know that one of the strongest predictors of smoking initiation is youth's perception of ease of access.
I'm going to show this real quick.
Okay. Okay, great. Part of the reason that the law did increase the age to 21, and part of the reason that I am so concerned about our adolescents and our youth having access to tobacco and nicotine products, is that nicotine is a highly addictive drug. In all of the addiction science that's happened in the last 20 years, we know a lot more about the human brain and its development, and we know that adolescence is a really prime time where if you have addictive substances that are introduced into the brain, it's more likely to become addicted. So somebody initiating an addictive substance at the age of 16 is much more likely to have lifelong consequences of addiction to this and other drugs as well than if you were to, say, start at age 26 because of the development of the brain. There have been studies that do show nicotine as a gateway drug, particularly to cocaine, but we know with the addiction pathways that it's a gateway to many other things. So a concern that we have is that the market has shifted. Although public health has had a lot of success in decreasing tobacco, the e-cig and the nicotine products are really expanding, and they really are focused on youth. There was, let me just find this. We did a recent study that found that, so we know that one of these Juul pods contains as much nicotine as a full pack of cigarettes does. And one study found that 63% of the Juul users aged 15 to 24 did not know it had nicotine in it. So not only is this something that is trendy, but it has an addictive substance that our youth don't necessarily even know what it is that they're using. And that's what makes me really scared. We know that the most common way that our youth get things like the Juul is through retail outlets, through going into a store and getting it. Nearly 74% said that they obtained it at a store or retail outlet. Our epidemiologists have done mapping of schools and the tobacco retail outlets that we know of overlaid with poverty in Clackamas County, divided up into our 10 health equity zones. Here you can see a picture of the Canby Health Equity Zone. The darker areas are the areas of higher rates of poverty, and the green areas are the tobacco retailers that we know of. You can see the black dots with the flags are the schools. People of lower socioeconomic status use tobacco products at a much higher rate than others, and it's not a coincidence that the neighborhoods where they live have higher numbers of tobacco retailers. Tobacco retailers cluster in neighborhoods with high rates of poverty, and high density of retailers is associated with increased smoking rates among adults. The next slide here is a closer-up look of the schools compared to where the tobacco retailers are that we know of in Canby. Studies have also shown that the density of tobacco retailers and proximity of those retailers to schools impacts youth tobacco rates. Increased understanding of ease of access and increased density all are associated with increased experimental smoking in our youth.
So one might say, you might be in your head going, well, I thought you said you didn't know where they were. You just showed us a map where the retailers are. Well, the reason why, and you heard Dr. Present say that we know of, is because our staff walk the entire county and go into every store possible that could be selling tobacco to identify if they are. That's the only reason we know where they are, is because we're walking the county to do it.
We recently found 232 retailers in the entire county and did a survey about the types of products that they sold and the placement and their price and their marketing. We found about 11 retailers in Canby, and we found that across the county, 90% of them sold little cigars and 72% sold e-cigarettes, both of which really are the marketing is targeted to our youth for those products. So this is not to say that public health has not done amazing work across the country in decreasing tobacco rates in our population and spreading knowledge of the dangers of tobacco. But because of this, many people think that it's really not an issue anymore, but it still is a huge issue in our community. Here you can see in Clackamas County the total number of adults who regularly smoke cigarette, the number of people who have serious illnesses, and the estimated cost that this puts on our community. A Clackamas County Community Health Assessment done last year looked at the top 3 causes of death in our county: major cardiovascular disease, cancer, and chronic lower respiratory disease, all tobacco-related diseases. We could significantly decrease those numbers if we were to decrease our tobacco use. So, going back to Dawn's introduction, why do we want to use tobacco retail licensing? How is this going to help us? Currently, like Dawn mentioned, tobacco is not licensed like our other legal, potentially addictive substances are, like alcohol and marijuana. The Oregon Health Authority Public Health Division does have the authority to enforce the minimum age of tobacco sales, which is now 21. However, their resources are such that they are not able to inspect every retailer in the state every year. We really need tobacco retail licensing to enforce the new Tobacco 21 and other tobacco laws and to effectively decrease our illegal sales to minors. With our tobacco retail licensing program, we are proposing 2 inspections per year for every retailer in the county. One would be a minor decoy, one would be public health staff going in for more education. Just of note, tobacco retail licensing Oregon is one of only 9 states in the country that does not have tobacco retail licensing at this time. There was a study that was done in California that looked at 33 communities after implementation of a strong tobacco retail licensing program, and nearly half of them had decreases of sales to minors of over 30%. There are examples across the country also that tobacco retail licensing does work. So we have a lot to work on and a lot of best practices and a lot of knowledge that we can build on to build this program in our county. In Oregon, there are 4 counties that have passed tobacco retail licensing: Benton, Klamath, Lane, and most recently in 2016, Multnomah. So we've looked to our sister counties to understand what they have learned, what are the pros and the cons, what can we do to make sure that this is the most successful program. So we've learned that it is most effective if done countywide. This avoids a patchwork of local ordinances and ensures consistent education with retailers across the county. We have learned that we need to have a license fee that is sufficient to cover not only the education, but the enforcement aspect of it. And we've learned that Public Health Authority is the best position to implement tobacco retail licensing. Public health licenses our restaurants, our swimming pools, hotels, childcare. Our inspectors are very well versed and are very knowledgeable with working with our business community in making sure that we are keeping the public safe. We are very good. We have a lot of knowledge around how to do good education and how to partner with our businesses. This is not a coming in and enforcing first. It's always education first, and we have a lot of experience with this in our restaurant inspections, which are done through Public Health Department. Everybody wants to know about the financial impact. So we partnered with the Portland State University's Northwest Economic Research Center to determine what the impact to Clackamas County would be of tobacco retail licensing. We found that overall for the county, if TRL goes into place, it would not have a significant adverse effect on the economy. We would see a reduction in total of 4.12 FTE positions across the county, corresponding to decrease in gross wages of just over $129,000, as you can see. That is in comparison to the total employees and the total income in these businesses that do sell tobacco. For Canby, in particular, you would expect to see potentially a 0.23 decrease in FTE and a decrease in $6,930 in labor income. So the annual licensing fee, would be estimated to be around $500 to $600 per year, which amounts to $1.37 to $1.64 per day for a retailer to sell tobacco and nicotine products. We know that tobacco and nicotine retailers can easily offset this cost by increasing the cost either of their tobacco or spreading out through other products. I've given you a grand overview. We can go into more details, and we thank you very much for your consideration and are happy to take any questions you have.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Out of curiosity, the retailers, is it the retailer or is it the suppliers that currently pay the regular cigarette tax? How does that take place, and how can you not use that to derive where the locations of the tobacco retailers are?
So the tax is paid every time tobacco is bought. So it is put onto the price of the carton of cigarettes or any other product. That tax goes to the state and is used for many things. So it does not necessarily go back into tobacco education or tobacco prevention
I don't think
at all.
Yeah, public health doesn't even see those dollars.
Wouldn't you be able to just look at those records and figure out who's selling tobacco in Clackamas County?
Very good question.
That is a very good question.
Yeah.
My understanding is that I do not know the answer
We'll
to
have to
that,
get
but I'll
back
look
with
into
you
that.
on that one.
Well, you don't have to get back to me, but if that's an easier way, you might just go do that instead of walking the entire county.
I think that it has the most effective
Good idea.
to walk the county, but walking the county helps interact with our business owners.
It's good for your cardiovascular health.
There you go.
Absolutely.
You got a Fitbit steps, right?
I think that having the knowledge of where they are, but also the resources to be able to actually provide that education and to enforce our laws if necessary, is the part of the tobacco retail licensing that is really different from what a tax does.
I think that's a great question. I mean, it really is. It's like, huh. But you could say the same thing for marijuana and alcohol as well, right? Because we could get that in, if we could get it that way as well. And so that's a really great question. I'm curious now. I want to go see if certainly if we could do that. Any other questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious, and if you covered it already and I missed it, I apologize. If this is coming from the legislature that we've raised the age to 21, I'm just wondering why they aren't putting this enforcement piece in place like they have with the OLCC. Why is it county by county?
So it did go to the legislature and did not pass. And the reasons that it did not pass had to do with a few things. There were challenges around designing the financial structure that would be fairly applied across small and large counties. Why that was very different from marijuana, I can't really speak to that, but that was one of the big sticking points, is how to make the actual price point fair for all in the state of Oregon. There is, the licensing fee. There is a stronger tobacco lobby at the state level than there is at the county level. And there were some issues around the minors in possession definition and how that would be dealt with. Again, finding something that's fair across the county that works, or across the state that works for everyone, there was not agreement that was made. So it really was put back to the counties to do what works for our communities.
And then how much would it cost each retailer to purchase this license then?
We're looking at about $500 to $600. Okay. And that is similar to what Multnomah County has done. It is more than what Benton County, I believe, was the first one to do it, but they have found that they do not have sufficient funds to be able to actually enforce the laws. So we feel strongly that it's not worth doing unless we have enough funding to actually do the whole program.
On the last slide there with your impact of the TRL, you talk about this no significant adverse economic impact. So you're saying right now there are 7,127 employees that sell tobacco?
So this is looking at the industries where tobacco is sold. So gas stations, potentially bars, grocery stores. And that is the number of total FTE for the industries that currently sell tobacco products.
You're saying that there will be across all 7,000 positions, roughly a decrease of 4 positions. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then who is voting to pass this TRL? Is it the voters? Is this going to be something that goes out to the voters, or is this on
County
the board? The
County
BCC is passing
Correct.
on. Okay.
Correct.
Of the annual fee of $600, let's say it is $500. Does that whole $500 going into enforcement and education?
So if this passes, the plan is actually to put together a rules advisory committee that will go through really all of the details of exactly what that licensing fee is going to be and how it is used. We are looking at probably 2 FTE in the public health department to run this kind of program for the county.
So right now those rules haven't necessarily been figured out yet in terms of, okay. So I want to, so we're correlating this to basically the enforcement of the same as alcohol at liquor stores or buying beer or whatever. Yeah, okay. So is, in terms of teaching an ID check, I mean, is it not the same? I mean, that you're either 21 or you're not 21. So you're buying beer or liquor. Is it just that there's more retailers that tobacco that may not necessarily deal with selling beer and wine and other spirits, we'll say, that they need to be educated on ID checking?
I believe that there's a need right now to educate on that the legal age is 21 now. I mean, although it is the law, and we do hope that it's gotten out to everybody selling tobacco, I can't assure you of that. So even that, people may be inadvertently illegally selling to minors under the age of 21. So yes, an ID check is the same, for alcohol or for tobacco. However, continued education is only going to help protect our youth.
This is kind of I'm going to ask this question to both my city staff and to you. You did mention the minor in possession piece, and I'm sure you probably, if you have this off the top of your head, I will applaud you. Do we know how often our police officers are issuing citations for minors in possession of marijuana and alcohol?
Well, our SRO, our school resource officer, planted in Canby High, sends us weekly tobacco ticketed minors. There has been a slight uptick in 19 and 20-year-olds because they've been caught, but it's usually ancillary to something else. So they're hanging out in the park, potentially after curfew or something, and then they happen to be smoking and then they realize. But I mean, and that is a ticket right now.
It is or is not?
It's just a violation.
Okay.
So that's on the user end. They're talking about the supply side.
No, I understand
yeah.
that, but there's still going to be that minor in possession piece that is, we enforce that on an alcohol standpoint, and I'm presuming then our local PD is going to also then have to enforce on now the tobacco side.
They currently
Well, I'm not sure because they don't know what it is. She said civil penalties, which is more akin to when you do a licensing, you could either stand to lose that license or have to pay a fee of like $10,000 for each instance or whatever. That's oftentimes how the suppliers are punished when the licensing for selling alcohol. We also do stings where furnishing alcohol to a minor happens to be a crime as well. So we do sometimes do that. That doesn't exist in the law right now in Oregon.
In our policy, what we are hoping to propose, there would not be any penalty on the youth at all. This would be completely on the retailers.
Okay, and that's great, I understand that, but so what I'm asking though, can a Canby police officer, if someone under the age of 21 is hanging out at Waite Park smoking a pack of Marlboros, can they be cited? Can they be ticketed or whatever? I mean, what's okay, so that's...
They are. I mean, and if they were found, they would be.
Okay, so part two of my question then is when we look at the enforcement piece, this is just at retailers, this isn't on our end in terms of what our police would have to be doing in terms of enforcing amongst those under 21.
No, it sounds like a completely separate program.
Great questions.
More questions, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'm curious, and this may be outside of your specialty, Doc, but about the interplay between the county doing this and city home rule. And I'm curious, as to I'm not aware of any other county business licensing requirements, that we have in Clackamas or Marion County at least. And so I'm curious, how the county can impose this kind of business license countywide and mandate it on all the jurisdictions, or can some cities opt out and say, sorry, county, we don't want to do that?
So this is not strictly a business license. This is this would be the Board of County Commissioners acting as the Board of Health and the Public Health Authority for the county. And so because tobacco is an addictive and dangerous substance and there's no safe amount of tobacco, that can be, we can license that as the Board of Health as a public health approach. That makes it very different from a business license, which has other purposes and other.
Yeah, they're really,
they're
they're separate, they would be separate licenses. So for example, as the Public Health Authority working with the Board of Health, which is our county commissioners, but they hit the gavel and they operate as the Board of Health, it is the business license conversation cannot be discussed in the Board of Health meetings because it's not a business license. It's a public health license, so it's a very separate thing. So the conversation of, because it is being discussed, you know, the business license topic is being discussed, but that is really a Board of County Commissioner topic, not a Public Health Authority topic. So I don't know if we're answering your question, but they are separate issues from this tobacco retail licensing effort.
So it's similar to a business that has a business license, but also may have a lottery license and a liquor license and a bingo license. It's, I'm thinking of that one in particular. So that's just you're licensing the product versus the business, basically.
I would think of it as a liquor license, which it currently is done at the state. The state could pass tobacco retail licensing. They did not, so the counties can pass it just as the state would.
Okay. I do have one more.
Yeah, please.
One more question, and I think you maybe touched on this at the beginning, but I didn't quite catch it. So, frankly, you're saying that the BCC is the one that's ultimately voting on this, and our current commission really hasn't met a fee they don't like, so I suspect it'll pass. In the words of our good Councilor Parker, why are we here? What do you need from us?
Thank you. That was going to be my question.
Well, I think, you know, it's very important for us to have these relationships with you. Is it true that, yes, the county commissioners can make that vote? Sure, they can. But we believe, public health believes, again, just like we have with our business community, we can enforce laws if we wanted to and not have that relationship with the business community, but that's not how we do our business. We are business friendly. We go out of our way to ensure that businesses stay in operation, and we work with them. We give 3 chances before we do anything, and then when it is time for us to say, okay, you're at risk, we say, do you want your notice on the door or do you want our notice on the door, right? So we just go the extra mile to really develop those relationships. This was important to us. We would like for you to support because we think that this is the right thing for our youth. And I think that we do share the goal of protecting our youth, both of us do. So there's 2 things. We want to develop this relationship, whether you support it or not. We're going to still be here and be able to have these conversations with you. And then ultimately, we do want you to support it. We want to be able to go to the county commissioners and say that we got 95 to 100% of the cities to do the right thing and to pass this so that we can really decrease the tobacco use of our youth. So that's why we're here. Yeah.
If you don't mind, I just want to comment. All of the licensing fee goes directly back into running and administering the program, just like our restaurant licensing fees. We can't use that money for any other work other than making this the most successful program.
Are we looking for a formal vote, essentially, Mayor, then, to either support or not? Is that what we're...
Well,
And what does support actually look like?
I guess that, so to that end of it, when is the Board of County Commissioners voting on this piece?
So we would like to have this in front of them by October.
Okay.
So we still have a little bit of outreach still to do. We really want to do our due diligence. We have 2 other city councils that we are speaking with. That'll be it, 2 next week. That'll be finished with our city councils, and then we will be engaging our Chamber of Commerce's because we know that that is a huge partner in this as well. So, so we think that in October is when we will be able to put a policy session together to get a vote, and then we will do some implementation work.
Okay, so to answer your question and your dual question for the 2 of you, again, my counsel and I include that, are notorious for wanting to mull over and kick the tires on issues on things brought before us. I mean, unless there's dialogue that wants to be had now, or we can work it into as an agenda item here, coming up in either the next meeting here in August or one of the two in September, and then formally have a conversation and figure out how we want to move forward. Either great, BCC, have fun, we're going to play Switzerland on the deal, no, we don't support it, or what does our support look like for something like this, whether it's a resolution or a statement to the Board of County Commissioners. Thoughts?
I think it's a deeper conversation than to handle tonight.
Okay.
And we had scheduled it.
Sorry. I said I think it's a deeper conversation, that we should not do it tonight.
Yeah, we had scheduled it as an information-only item tonight to give you an opportunity to hear the presentation from the County Public Health and give you a later opportunity to bring this issue back in more in-depth conversation, but felt that it was important to get the information out front, that the county step forward and provide that information to you as the lead agency that is promoting this proposal. And as you direct, if you want to take a deeper look at this, we'd schedule it for a later meeting with the potential action of either support, neutrality, or opposition to the proposed action.
Well, and not for me, again, I think that, yes, I think we should have a conversation piece and figure out what steps we want to take. For me, I absolutely.
That then becomes a staff and a council resource that is drawn upon. So I would like to have a little bit of time to think about our role of weighing in on things that are not city business. It has nothing to do with you. Mm-hmm. It's just the way that I'm trying to at least discipline myself in the number of topics that we keep to ourselves.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Smith.
And just, I guess, to segue from that, I differ a little there because I like the program and would support it. A free market economist would allow for sin taxes to reduce the negative externalities of a negative product. However, so I support it in that regard. The problem with that is typically governments, the lottery is the primary example, will use the money they raise to then go out and advertise to make more sales of the product they're trying to warn people against. Now, I doubt that would ever happen with a health authority, but once the money starts rolling in, I wonder whether the program grows and you're looking for more human resources and you're looking to pay for more employees and whatnot. And that's my fear with us approving this kind of a program at a jurisdiction that's not under our own control. And so that's my big fear and my request, or I guess warning, that doesn't happen, with this kind of a new program.
Are you asking if there's an inflationary piece to the licensing?
No, when they start receiving the additional revenues from the additional licensing, and fines and whatnot, then the program,
retailers to get more.
Right.
Yes.
And the advertising.
May I answer that? I think that there's, if I may, there is, again, we use the example of our restaurant inspections as a great benchmark. And there's actually law written in our state ordinance, if you will, that basically says that we can't profit off of that. So the fees that we have are like to the penny of what it would take to enforce, not to grow government, not to get more FTEs. In fact, our entire environmental health program is self-sustained by the fees. So that's not only our philosophy is just being good stewards of the tax dollars, but it's also in our state law that we can't make profit off of that. So I would say that we would take the same thoughtful action when we're doing the rules workup, that we would have the same benchmark. That's the first thing I wanted to mention. And I also just remembered your tax question. I want to come back to that real quick. This little baby doesn't get taxed. So if you have retailers that are just selling this, there's no tax associated with this. So there's no way to identify it. So all of your vaping equipment is tax-free. I just remembered that. So I was like, oh, I gotta tell you. Yes.
The tobacco is, but the paraphernalia is not.
Correct.
Yes.
So actually, that adds to my question. It was going to be more logistical question than a policy question. Is the license going to be required for, say, a business wants to sell just the paraphernalia and no nic juice? Would that apply? Would you have to have
It's
a...
only if you're selling nicotine products.
Okay, so you could potentially have a shop that would sell the vape pens and juice that didn't contain nicotine, and there wouldn't be a license fee.
Theoretically, you could.
Yeah, I don't know how many products like that there are, but.
I know they exist.
They do
I have a
exist.
teenage daughter as well, so, okay, thank you.
It's the tobacco and nicotine products that are, you need a license in order to sell.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And just for the record, I mean, I would be happy to support this right now, but if you guys want to wait for the other counselors and whatnot, I understand. So that's my input.
No, I
Okay.
appreciate that. So I think we need a noodle, and I'll have conversation with our city administrator and our city attorney about Councilor Parker's points. It sounds like maybe we're going to add this as either a potential action item for us here in a very soon agenda, so you at least know where we're at and in a positionary sense to take to the Board of County Commissioners.
Yeah.
Okay.
And any questions that you have as you're noodling, please feel free to call us if you have any questions. We're here to help and to answer anything, any questions that you might have. We're available.
Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you so much.
Can you bring those pieces up again? Because I really...
I worked at the high school this
having
year,
effects.
and I saw a lot of them being used.
This fits into your USB right here.
Yeah.
That's okay. You just... Wow.
It charges. This is your flavor. So this comes in mint, creme brulee, bubble gum, all kinds of things.
Going to the kids watching on TV. Some of us city councilors up here have never smoked a cigarette in our life, so you don't have to try it.
No, you do not.
Okay.
We're so riveting.
All right.
I spent 3 weeks smoking a USB drive.
My kids don't even watch us anymore.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, Tyler, I don't think that's a danger. My kids won't even watch us anymore.
We'll move into communications. Anything, Mr. City Manager?
That's funny.
All right. Our first opportunity for citizen input and community announcements. It appears that my yellow cards are regarding agenda items, but if there's anyone that has anything that's a non-agenda item or a community announcement that they wish to make, now would be your time to do so. Please drop off a yellow card there to our city recorder, Ms. Schaefer, and I'll get it. Seeing none, we'll move into mayor's business. More just announcements than anything else. Yesterday, we celebrated the retirement of our Economic Development Director, Renata Mengelberg. After 7 years of leading the economic charge of the city and, gosh, I think she said 30 years of public service, she is retired, and she and her husband are going to travel the country visiting national parks as going to be her new profession. So we will miss her and wish her the best of luck. With that, we are excited to announce that the promotion of Jamie Stickle from our Main Street manager to our new economic development manager. So she officially took over this morning, moved in, got her computer set up, and I think she may actually have gotten some business done here by the end of the day. So we are excited for her, and I have total confidence that she's going to do a great job. This Friday is First Friday, so tons of festivities downtown. So please check the Main Street portion of the website or Facebook page, and they'll list all the events that are going on and who's maybe running some great things. I know Gwynn's is going to be open with some live music at 7 o'clock, and I believe a couple of the other retailers will be open. Saturday is the Junk Refunk event downtown. So there's usually, I think last year there were a couple hundred different vendors.
selling their wares, and so all of First Avenue will be shut down for most of the day on Saturday. So I think last year we had well over several thousand people downtown partaking in the Junk Refunk event. So we look forward to that. Bridging Cultures is on Saturday as well at Locust Street Park. I believe starts at 11 o'clock. I'm looking for head nods. 11:30. Great event. Usually tons of food and great people hanging out and having a good time. Again, that's Locust Street Park on Saturday. I attended the Oregon Mayors Association conference this past weekend. Fun 3 days of mayors talking about policy and state issues and city issues. It actually turned out to be, it was a little apprehensive based on the agenda, but it ended up being great. We ended up talking everything from city's emergency response plans for, in the case of a train derailment. So that ended up being very interesting. And then to the point where we were talking about new transient room tax pieces that were recently passed at the state level. So it was a great conference, and I'll provide more information later. And then recently I was added to, as mayor, was added to the Metro Regional Land Use and Transportation Committee. So we're taking a look at the metro area, so the metro body of government, their 2040 growth expansion plans, so both land use wise and transportation. So getting a well-versed experience in transportation, it seems like. So that concludes my pieces. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize for being gone. I was on vacation last meeting, as you all knew. I enjoyed watching the entire meeting. I was not driving while I was watching it this time. And the Planning Commission had meetings since our last meeting when I gave my last report. We'll be dealing with one of them today. And the other one was the consideration of a new commercial retail business office by the Gustafson family over off of Redwood in the commercial park over there. They're going to be building an office complex.
Great. Perfect, thank you. Councilor Parker?
Yes, the Bike and Pedestrian Committee met yesterday night. In fact, this is the first time in 8 years that the Bike Ped meeting is met one night and then we have a council the next. So items are fresh on my mind. First of all, it needs to be noted that one of our members left us. Ken Dennis passed away suddenly in the last couple of weeks. And my favorite Ken Dennis comment was, "As long as I see an adult on a bicycle, it's a good day." So we'll miss Ken and his participation in that citizen committee. The committee talked about a desire to take a field trip to see, among other things, the Traverso property. And so I'll drop a note to you, Mayor, and see if we can't wrap that into the joint council park trip that is being planned. Let's see, what else? Safe routes, not much on that. Malala River Corridor, not much on that. Let me just move on to one other thing. A tiny but significant piece of history took place last week, and that was the Fair Board that I'm on had a meeting to discuss its new master plan. What to do with the facilities, how to upgrade them, what sort of events to have. And for the first time, the Fair Board was joined by a representative of the city, our new Economic Development Director, and Kyle, the Chamber of Commerce Director. So this is something that I've wanted to see for a decade, is those three entities talking, and that took place last week. That's it.
Great. Thank you, sir. Councilor Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had no liaison committees meet between the last council meeting and tonight, so I'll have a report at the next meeting on those. But I did attend the neighborhood meeting that Stafford was presenting last night. on the project north of Territorial. My biggest takeaway from that meeting, well, first of all, Lucas is here, Levi, I'm sorry. He's here, and he did a great job being very patient with all of the questions. But my biggest takeaway is we need to do some more education on the process because a lot of folks weren't realizing that this is not about a subdivision, that this is about the development concept plan, and they really aren't understanding all the workings of this process. So I think we need to have more conversation and be more out there with how the process works, and maybe that could be the Planning Commission doing some of it and us doing some of it, just so they understand first that we're not in charge of the development, we're not in charge of annexation and these kinds of things. So it was a very interesting conversation. I was glad to sit in and listen to some of that. But that's all I have for tonight, because like I said, I don't have any liaison assignments this last couple of weeks. Thank you.
Great. Let me make that up as a follow-up. Thank you. That's right.
Yes, so I was on vacation for a while, for about a week and a half, so I've been out of the loop, but I did attend that meeting also and watched Levi present. And I live up there, so it was interesting to be a citizen sitting there listening and seeing the presentation. And it was quite educational, even from a city councilor's position, actually, to hear the process laid out. This is approximately how many months this will take, and so it was very educational, I thought. But it was good to be a citizen as part of that process, too. And we'll see it eventually up here, I'm sure. So, yeah, that's all I've got.
Could I add just one thought to the discussion relative to last night's meeting? There was apparently in the presentation some reference to the city declining to have this new development develop the park that's on North Locust Street. And that was my choice. The option was to basically turn over the 2.5 acres and let the developer apply their SDCs to a park lands that already is owned by the city, or have the park control its own destiny. And I made the decision that it makes more sense for the city to accept the SDCs from the development and then apply those SDCs to the development of that park, rather than having a third-party private developer make those types of decisions on our behalf. So I just wanted to provide that clarification. I know that issue came up, and from the feedback that I received, there seemed to be an inference that the city didn't care and wasn't going to develop the park, and that's absolutely not true. The reality is that the city doesn't want the developer to spend SDCs on that new project on a park when we're going to build that park ourselves using SDCs, and we would simply expect the developer to place the SDCs for their development into our SDC fund, and then we'll be able to apply the funds and develop the park the way that we want to. Just for clarification.
Oh, okay. Unless they wanted to build a different park, that's the other alternative, right? Is they could dedicate land for a separate park?
Yeah, which they did not propose.
Okay.
It's not part of the development concept plan.
Oh, interesting. Okay, thanks, Rick.
Councilor Hensley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rick, I also wanted just to kind of thank you. I don't know if you sent her, if she went on her own accord, but I noticed that Amanda was there, so it was nice to have somebody from city staff there to listen to the citizens' comments. So that was
She is
nice.
a property owner in the proposed development concept plan.
Okay, so she was there as a citizen. Well, it doesn't hurt, though, to have some city staff there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We will move into the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the minutes of the July 18th, 2018 City Council work session and regular meeting and appointment of Deanna Ball-Carb to the Traffic Safety Commission for a term to expire on June 30th, 2021.
Great, thank you. Can I get a second, please?
Second, yeah.
Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Height to approve the consent agenda, which include the adoption of the minutes of the July 18th, 2018 City Council work session and regular meeting, and appointment of Deanna Ball-Carb to the Traffic Safety Commission for a term to expire on June 30th, 2021. Any discussion, comment?
Nope.
Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I guess we're down to 4-0. Passes. And Deanna is here, so thank you very much for Getting on the Traffic Safety Commission, I know that we have not had much South Side representation on the committee, so thank you for signing up and being a part of this committee, so we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll see you next week.
Yeah, somebody else to help corral that group. We are going to move into our first of two public hearings right now. The first one is amending Canby Municipal Code Chapter 9.48.050A regarding noise variance exemptions by adding an exemption for sounds, including the discharge of fireworks and other explosive devices created by the city, Canby Fire District, and Canby School District events. So the matter presently before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter, please fill out a yellow public testimony card and give to the city recorder. At the appropriate time, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and interest in the matter. So right now I just have the one, and it's Paul. Say your last name for me, sir. Paul, all right, and you are here to speak on this tonight. Okay. Those people that are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please indicate your desire to speak by raising your hand. So I have Paul. Thank you, sir. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In so doing, those in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. All questions must be directed through the mayor. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received both for and against shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. We'll have a staff report, then questions, if any, by the hearing body. I will open the public hearing for testimony. So proponents, those that are for the change in the variance, not more than 3 minutes. And then opponents, those that are opposed to the change, not more than 3 minutes. I will then close the public hearing. Questions, if any, by the hearing body will be asked, then discussion by the hearing body. A decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure of the hearing? No? Okay. So we will move into our staff report. Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mayor Hudson. The substance of the draft ordinance and the amendments to the ordinance that are proposed would alter the city's noise ordinance to permit the use of fireworks and other explosive devices by a public agency, the city, Canby School District, and another public agency, Canby Fire. This issue was raised last year, and we did quite a bit of work trying to see if there was a solution outside of a formal request of the council to consider its options of whether to continue to allow what in fact is a tradition at Canby High School to use fireworks to celebrate touchdowns during high school football games, or if the community would be better served to not permit activities that create the loud noises described in at least some conversations as explosions in the community. One of the substantive change, if no change is made at all, the Canby School District would be allowed to continue to have sounds produced by sound amplifying equipment at activities sponsored by Canby School District between 7 a.m. and 12 p.m. midnight local time, but would not be allowed to use fireworks if they exceeded the noise levels that are identified within our noise ordinance. If this ordinance is ultimately approved by the City Council, then the Canby School District and Canby Fire, who hosts for the benefit of our community our 4th of July fireworks extravaganza would both be, pursuant to our code, empowered to to include fireworks in their celebrations relative to the city, to Canby School District, and relative to Canby Fire would be allowed to continue to hold its 4th of July fireworks display. I know in many people's minds the 4th of July display may be less obvious because there are explosions going on all day long on the 4th of July, and we don't try to enforce citywide the noise ordinance on the 4th of July. However, I felt because one of the things I was trying to do in developing this ordinance and this proposal is to be consistent in how we address the use of fireworks by public agencies when those fireworks are being done for a public or community benefit. And so I applied what I consider to be an equal dignity rule in identifying the Canby Fire, City of Canby, and Canby School District in the ordinance specifically as permitted to use fireworks. That, in essence, is the background that has brought you to this evening. The proposal is the amendment of the ordinance as it has been presented to you. The substance and effect of that ordinance, if you adopt it, is that Canby School District and Canby Fire would be permitted to use fireworks.
Without having to seek a variance.
Without having to seek a variance every year.
Okay.
Okay. Councilor Height, do you have a question?
Yeah, question. So as it is, the fire district every year applies for a variance.
It does
Is that
not.
correct?
It does not.
Okay.
There has never been a request for a variance for 4th of July fireworks by Canby Fire or the predecessors. It's just always been assumed that fireworks happened on Independence Day, and
Right,
so
sure.
it's never been an issue. We're trying to resolve that, not necessarily, I think that oversight at the same time.
So this formalizes that piece at least
Yeah,
for
it
the
does.
fire department. Is that what you're
Yeah,
trying to
that's my question.
Yeah.
What was that?
It
Mr.
acknowledges that this is something that's been happening for many, many years in the city for the benefit of the community and codifies the appropriateness of those celebrations.
Councilor Smith, did you have a question?
Questions?
No, sorry. Misread that. Yes, Councilor Inslee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You were deleting the line that says, that refers to amplified sounds. I'm just wondering, is that going to that's included in sounds, including explosive devices?
Yes.
So that
Yeah.
their graduation, when they're using the microphone and everything, that's still
Right.
included as an exempted?
That section, 9.48.050A, which is sounds produced by sound amplifying equipment, was redundant when we added the new section 13, sounds including the discharge of fireworks and other
Okay.
explosive devices.
Okay, I thought so. I just wanted to be certain and clarify that. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Robinson at all? No? Okay. Then I will open up the public hearing for testimony right now. And so proponents, those in favor of the variance, I don't have anybody for the pro side, so unless somebody, now that we've read it, has something to say in favor of, no? Okay. Then we'll move into opponents to the variance. Paul?
Mr. Mayor, just the amendment to the code, it's not a variance.
Sorry, pardon me. Thank you. An amendment to the code. Thank you, Counselor. Paul, if you'd like to come up and address the council?
I'll do my best.
That's all that we ask.
Welcome.
How are you this evening?
I'm doing quite well, I think. First off, thank you all for the hard work you do. It's appreciated. And I've written something down so I don't go off course here. And if it's any time it's objectionable, I don't mean it, okay? So, Mayor Hodson and members of the City Council, on May 22nd of 2018, I submitted a letter detailing my condition due to chronic pain and how the explosions from the Canby football games can and does trigger pain responses as well as stress and anxiety. I also submitted a letter from my physician, David L. Shenson, MD, Mount Scott Internal Medicine, to verify my condition. Mayor Hodson and members of the City Council, how does changing the Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 9.48.050A, to add language exempting sounds to include fireworks, excuse me, and other explosive devices at school-sanctioned events, answer my request for your consideration? How does this help me acknowledge my medical condition and help end this disruption? I read a recent article in the Canby Herald in regard to World Refugee Day, wherein Council Member Sarah Spoon stated, quote, while these immigrants are here, they should be treated humanely. Thank you for that sentiment. I have given you some of my personal medical information and documentation from my physician. I am your neighbor. I'd also like to be treated humanely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much. And we do have your original letter and the items in our packet, so thank you for submitting those to us. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Any other, I don't have any other cards or comments on this piece. So I will close the public hearing. Questions by hearing body at all?
This is a tough one. I mean, discussion, you mean? Questions, discussion?
Any questions or clarifications? Or
no.
Okay, so then I have a couple of questions. So if, looking at what we're changing here, so right now, what the change means is that then the city, the fire department, and the school district, any sounds that we're asked, basically what this does now is put us as government out there saying that we don't need to ask for an exemption when we're doing an event, correct? That has sound or fireworks or explosive nature, correct?
Yeah, the other exemptions are already in place. We've added fireworks is what we've done.
Okay. So I guess I'm just trying to boil down then. So what would cause the fire department or the school district to come before the city council asking for a variance against this ordinance?
You know, I can't think of a reason that they would need to come and request an additional variance. One of the unique aspects of these three agencies is that they support and promote events for the benefit of the public. They're not doing it for profit. They're not doing it for personal benefit or personal gain. The events that they sponsor, the activities that they sponsor, are for the entertainment and for the benefit of the community. That's the design. And I'm very sensitive to Paul's medical condition and his concerns for some very personal reasons. For example, the Canby School District has been doing fireworks at its football games for many years. I hear anecdotally 25 to 30 years. And I don't think, I think that there are options that could be available, but I don't think that it is asking too much to allow them to continue a practice that has been in place for so many years. One of it's unusual in working with a public agency because we don't do things for ourselves. We do things for the benefit of the community, and we typically don't do things for the benefit of the individual. We look at the larger community when we are considering any type of action or activity. We do the 4th of July celebration because it brings our entire community together. We do Light Up the Night because it brings our entire community together. The only reason that Canby Fire does the fireworks display is, frankly, because nobody else would do it, and they saw it as a wonderful community benefit, and it brings the community together. And and that's where I think public agencies are a little bit unique. We're not, there's not a profit motivation, there's not a personal motivation. It's an attempt to make people want to come and gather. And that's really about as much of a description as I can give to this. I just think that are we different? No, we're not different, but I think relative to the noise that we make on a day-to-day basis, I think that we tend to try to develop programs that are sensitive to and responsive to the needs of the community, and will ultimately bring people together in celebration. This is what we're trying to accomplish here.
I actually do. It's probably already expected. I'm just curious, if we were to approve this change, the motion includes a declaration of emergency. Why is that?
Canby High School football games will start before the 30-day period expires, and so we want to make sure, if in fact that happens and there's an expectation that fireworks will be allowed, that they don't violate any noise ordinance in that interim one game that would be overlapping.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Parker.
Rick, does the school district know that we're doing this?
Yes, they do.
I'm baffled why there's no advocate for this.
Anybody?
If it's a 30-year tradition, we don't have anyone here advocating for it.
Informal
yes,
show of hands.
We have no one testifying for it,
Yes,
I guess I should
card.
point.
No, I know.
And that's where I'm a little bit baffled here. Why, if this were to be defeated, then each time the Canby High School wanted to do this, they would have to come in and justify a variance then, which might get them here. I mean, are you from the administration of the school?
Yes, I am. I'm the appointed director of facilities for the Canby School District. My name is Tim Graves.
Come up front.
Do you want to come up here to the table then? And
I didn't.
Eric, you want to give Kim your card?
Do you have an opinion on this?
No, I'm here just to, I had a discussion actually this morning with Superintendent Goodall regarding this situation and this whole variance to the noise variance. So the takeaway that I wanted to bring tonight and on behalf of the superintendent and the school district to the council members is that superintendent is sensitive to any citizen in the community that might have an objection to this or a concern or any issue with it. And he is going to contact fireworks vendor that they use to try to get some less, a lower concussion or a lower amount of explosive sound. Let's put it that way. So he would work towards that to try to mitigate how loud that might be. So a different type of firework. Let's put it that way. So that's what I'd like to relay on behalf of the school district.
Well, my question went to, does the school district want to continue this tradition?
They do. And that is the key, the crux of the whole issue. As far as the school district is concerned, it is a tradition. It's a community tradition. And it's valued in the community. It's part of their athletic department. And they take a lot of pride in that part of their tradition. So I think it would be a shame to lose that tradition. And I think it's very much supported in the community overall. So does that answer your question?
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
And welcome to the role.
Thank you.
Yeah. Last minute entry there. Eric, did you want to address this real quick?
Hi, my name is Eric Leitonen, and I've lived in the community for 50 years, and they've always had fireworks at the games, but they haven't always had the compression blasts. I think if they would take those out and just use the stuff that spreads out the noise it would make a big difference, because you can't feel those from across the highway where I lived until recently, but you could always feel those compression blasts. So I think what he was talking about is a good idea. Just take out the compression fireworks and just use the old style fireworks would make a big difference.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate that. Yeah, because I think it's the combination of the fire. There's a cannon component, is there not, to the?
I believe so.
Okay, and that's the piece I think that's at issue is not so much, Paul, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not so much the fireworks from a display standard, it's the concussive nature of the cannon and the ones that tend to be more of a boom than.
It is that as well as I can take the beginning of the game because I know it's going to happen. It is every touchdown that is you don't know when.
Right.
And I wish the team well. You know, that's going to hurt me if they continue with the concussive thing. So yes, that's it. But it's the random act that I cannot get away from.
Okay.
And I wish it was different, but it's not. And I appreciate some compromise here. Thank you.
So does, okay. So it seems like to me then that what the school district is looking at trying to achieve may be a win-win for both you and for the school.
Yes, I've talked with all, thank you, Tracy, by the way, for being the liaison there. And yes, I would be agreeable with that.
Okay. So back to the ordinance in hand then, so I guess it comes down to the question of, do we want the agencies coming before us for a noise variance request, or do we want a blanket piece across?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to get into deliberation before we get much more, and we've had a lot of opinions expressed by the dais up here, and we haven't even gotten into deliberation yet. So,
Wait, what
I've
are you
refrained
asking?
from expressing my opinion because we're just in public testimony.
Right. I'd like to express mine too. Are we ready to go?
Okay, well, then if someone wants to make a motion so we can get a discussion, then please do.
Mr. Mayor, I would, let me read it. Mr. Mayor, I would move that we approve the amendment to the Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 9.48.050A regarding noise variance exemptions by adding an exemption for sounds, including the discharge of fireworks and other explosive devices created by the city, Canby Fire District, and Canby School District events.
Thank you.
And creating an emergency.
I'll second
You didn't read the whole ordinance, but that's okay.
From
It says, and declaring an emergency. The motion is, I move to approve ordinance number 1489, an ordinance amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 9.48050A regarding noise variance exceptions and declaring an emergency to come up for second reading August 15th, 2018.
Do you accept the amended,
Do you accept the amended motion?
Yes.
And Councilor Parker, do you still be a second?
You're supposed to be sent the motion. Oh.
Okay,
It's in the
so
packet.
a motion's been made by Councilor Smith and seconded by Councilor Parker to approve ordinance number 1489, an ordinance amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 9.48.050A regarding noise variance exceptions and declaring an emergency to come up for second reading on August 15th, 2018. Discussion.
Okay, let me jump in, Tyler, if you don't mind. So the idea of public benefit, I've thought about this issue a lot because I've talked to Paul, he called me on the phone, and I thought, okay, public benefit, so the people that attend the game and that have been a part of this tradition for 30 to 50 years, that's a great public benefit to them and the students and whatnot. I'm thinking about the other neighbors and those that have pain disorder problems or PTSD. My brother-in-law's brother, actually like 5 or 6 years ago, wrote a letter to the Canby Herald, a letter letter to the editor, I remember, like, oh, it didn't even occur to me at the time that he suffered from that, and nothing became of it then, but it's kind of interesting. So this is a recurrent, theme, I would say, and I'm sure there are others that feel that way too. And others have talked to me about their dogs getting upset, with the explosions with the fireworks. So it's just an interesting, I wanted to bring that up, like public benefit. Greatest good for greatest number, I don't know. We can't really quantify that, I guess, how many neighbors are kind of suffering or disliking it versus how many people in the stands are enjoying it. So I wanted to bring that up. I don't know if anybody has a response to that, but...
Discussion mode, so you very well may get that.
Okay.
Councilor Smith, did you have something to
Yes,
say?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Do I have strong opinions in favor of both sides of this? For Paul, as a veteran myself and, representing lots of veterans and understanding, I don't know the nature of your medical ailment, but I know PTSD is real and people fight these things and have real problems, so I can absolutely understand your position. But I also know that thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people every year enjoy and find entertainment and find a sense of community and, the camaraderie and sense of community involvement and local entertainment and things that come from the community's sports programs, namely football and some special things like fireworks, are a tremendous public benefit, to use those words. And unfortunately, when I sit up here as a city councilor deciding which one weighs heavier, to me it's not even a close call. That's not any disrespect or to your pain or anything like that. In fact, I mentioned to a number of the councilors and whatnot that I would be more than happy to donate my city council stipend for a month or two to buy you dinner to go out those 6 nights and enjoy a meal somewhere in Canby, away from the football field, so that you wouldn't be having your pain. But to me, it's not a question. The public benefit of thousands upon thousands of people, enjoying the football game and having that small town community feel, and we can avoid your pain relatively easy. Maybe the Booster Club can raise some funds to do that every year. Maybe send you out for expenses paid dinner, those 6 nights they have home football games would be, I think, a win-win for both. That's my thoughts on it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Councilor Parker, did you have something? Nothing.
Mayor, excuse me, I know this might not be decorum, but these are directed at me from the bench here. And tradition, we've changed traditions. We've amended them in the Constitution. Great things have happened due to amending traditions. So to stand on tradition at the expense of personal health, I don't get it. I'm passionate about that. I appreciate the idea of going to dinner, but it's my house. It's my sanctuary. It's mine. I live here. I'm a neighbor. It's enough. This is the only football team in the Three Rivers League that celebrates this way. Everybody else does it differently.
I appreciate that.
I have another question too. So if we allow this, then where would we draw the line with fireworks if, say, the school district wants to expand even further? So it started out with football games. Now it's graduation, which I don't think is a really long-standing tradition. The fireworks during graduation. I mean, is there another event that they're going to want to let them off? Do they just get carte blanche to let fireworks off during a soccer game? I don't know where it. I mean, that's a little absurd, maybe, but where does it end? What's our vision on that?
I don't have an answer to that question. I will tell you that they did do a fireworks display at graduation this year.
Yeah.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
But the only 2 events that I'm aware of fireworks are the graduation, which I wasn't aware of until this year, and football games.
Mm-hmm. Question for the school district.
Sure.
I have a question for the man from the school district. Is this last year the first time we did graduation fireworks?
I would have to confirm.
Okay.
From the sound of it, yes.
Okay. Because I know it's the first we've heard of it, but I don't have kids in the school, so I don't know personally. Okay. Okay. It was the first year. Thank you, Paul. Can we amend this to actually not give them blank, carte blanche fireworks and just specifically say football games? Just a question to Rick.
And I would say then why even include them at all? Why not just make them come back and ask for a variance at the
Every
beginning? No, they can do one at the beginning of August. It covers the whole football season. Because they'll know the dates of the football game and they can walk in and say, we need a variance on these 6 nights. And we can decide then to either approve it or not.
There's a fee for variance.
Because currently they're out of compliance, right, Mayor?
Sorry, what's that?
So currently with the noise ordinance, the city or the school district is out of compliance because the noise level is so high, the decibel level is so high at a certain level that they're out of compliance. So that's why they have to come before us for a variance if we don't amend it.
No.
Is that correct?
It has nothing to do with the noise level. The explosives and fireworks are flatly prohibited. You don't even have to check the noise level on those.
Is that right? Oh.
In this ordinance, as
Okay.
it currently is written, that's correct.
Okay.
Fireworks are just fireworks.
Okay. All right. But with our noise, we have a noise ordinance also in addition that allows like so many decibels, right? And
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to break a noise variance. You'd have to be out there with the decibel meter to gauge the decibel one. The way it was written before, they had the ability to use their PA system from certain time to certain time. So if however you tweak the ordinance is however you're going to want to have exceptions that you want to remain. So I don't know if you want to try to back off certain things, then maybe you leave in the PA system.
Well, maybe I could make a suggestion that could address this. If we were to reinstate exception A4, which is sounds produced by sound amplifying equipment and activity sponsored by Canby School District, including the discharge of fireworks at football games between 7 a.m. and 12 p.m. midnight local time, and then strike from the new 13 Canby School District sanctioned events, then you would have remaining on section 13 sounds including the discharge of fireworks and other explosive devices created from city and Canby Fire District sanctioned events.
So that would remove Canby School District entirely from that?
It would remove it entirely from 13. We would reinstate 4 and add to the exception the discharge of fireworks at football games.
So to be clear, then 4 now becomes 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 clear down so that the actual 13 now is 14.
Becomes 14. It would include renumbering.
So wait, which one are we, I mean, we're reinstating 4 and deleting 13, is that what you're saying?
No, we
Sorry,
would
I
leave
missed that.
13, but in 13, what we would do is, because that does include fireworks and from Canby Fire District, so it would 13 would now be 14 because we've reinstated 4, and each of the numbers below 4 would go up. So
If you
4
go
would
back
be
up into the ordinance,
Right.
and
it's
then
numbered 1, 2, 3, and then the first 4 is crossed out because of new verbiage, and then it starts renumbering.
Right.
So if we reinstate 4, uncross it out, so 4 becomes back into play, 4 becomes 5, 5 becomes 6. And then finally, item number 13 is number 14. So there's 14 items, not 13.
But we're keeping the discharge of fireworks and explosive devices, though.
we would be adding it to 4. The 13, we would be including it for Canby Fire District and for the city of Canby. The only reason that we put the city in that was that there is a possibility that Canby Fire District won't always be managing the fireworks, and so we were just creating an opportunity. If the city someday chooses to continue fireworks, if Canby Fire backs out, then we would be authorized to do so. That's the only reason that that's in there.
I like it fine the way it is.
I mean, just to be honest, at this point, I would vote against this amendment, because I would rather the school district comes to us in the fall and applies for a variance at this point. It's like you said, Tyler, it's a hard decision, because you see both sides. You happen to see one side, I guess, a little bit more sympathetically, and I see the other. So just to let the other counselors know, that's how I'll vote.
So you're more in the mindset that it remove the school district piece from the fireworks aspect.
And let them come before us and give a variance, or offer a variance before the beginning of the school year to say we're going to be doing this. Yeah.
Tyler.
Mr. Mayor, unless
Yes,
you're
sir.
prepared to break a tie, I would move to table this till next meeting.
Motion.
I would second Tyler's motion. I think, unless you want to, is that, you actually moved, I'll move to table? Second to table, I mean.
So that we have a fuller discussion
we
with the
need-
full.
We have two more
council.
counselors,
We
we
need
have two
4
counselors
votes.
missing.
I don't know how the others are going to vote, but that's fine with me. I'm happy with tabling.
Don't we need 4
So-
votes to pass anything?
Okay, so now we've got a motion to table it till the next meeting, a second. So those.
Supersedes.
That just requires a majority of those here.
Yeah, so that,
Supersedes.
Although, do we have to reopen the public hearing and go through, like 40 minutes? For the sake of expediency, how's that going to look, Mayor?
Well, no, you've had a public, or a chance for the public to be
Okay, so
heard,
we don't have
and
to-
then you don't have to have the answer now. You can table it for the time being and bring it up at the next meeting. And the acknowledgement of it happening at the next meeting is the announcement that needs to be made so that they know they can come and still see what happens and what the deliberative process is. The chance for the hearings already, they've been heard, and the deliberative process will be seen.
And actually, you said in the beginning, it would be moved to a date certain.
to a date certain, right, so Kim, we have room in the next agenda? Thank you. So, motion's been made to table till the next meeting and
August 15th.
seconded. Those in favor of tabling until the next council meeting?
Aye.
All right.
Okay, all those opposed? So we will issue, so this is tabled until the next city council meeting, which we'll revisit when we have a fuller council. Is everyone that's here going to be here for the next council meeting? Councilor Parker, you're not for a
The
while.
next council meeting,
August 15th.
August 15th, I'm here.
Okay,
So by the way, the second reading will be early September, and by then, is there already going to be a home football game? Just scheduling-wise, because if there is, then they're not allowed to, right, let off the fireworks in the meantime, because, right?
Well, they could
Okay.
come in and get a variance then.
yeah, there's not enough time.
Interesting.
Oh.
All right.
So, okay, so for now,
Unless they want to come in on the 15th for the public hearing.
yes.
I just wanted to add that whenever someone seeks a variance, there's a process they have to go to before it gets to the council. They have to provide a list of property owners within 100 to 200 feet. There's a mailing that has to be done, and there's also a published notice of the public hearing that has to be done. So it's not something they could just come into one meeting and do.
They have to pay a fee.
And what's the fee to do that, Kim?
Well, it's, I believe, $75, but for a nonprofit or government agency, it would be waived.
Okay, thank you. All right, so for now, this issue's been tabled to the next meeting. We've considered that the public hearing has been had. We can reference that at the next meeting if there's any other questions or whatnot that come from that. And I think the council is good on that piece. Okay, that issue is tabled till then. Our next public hearing is on application 18-02 Beck Pond subdivision by Roger and Cheryl Steinke. Let me read this. The matter presently before the City Council is an appeal of a matter heard previously by the City Planning Commission. The record of this hearing was created before the Planning Commission. New evidence that would have to be considered by the Planning Commission will not be considered tonight. The council will hear oral arguments or review written arguments by the applicant, appellant, their agents, or others who have previously presented testimony to the commission. The applicant is the original party appearing before the Planning Commission. The appellant is the party appealing the matter before the council. Failure to raise an issue at this hearing accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude an appeal to LUBA, the Land Use Board of Appeals, based on that issue. You'll be limited by time for your argument. The applicant will have a total of 10 minutes to speak. The applicant may use all of that time in their initial presentation or reserve a portion for rebuttal. The appellant will follow and be given 10 minutes also to speak. After appellant's argument, others that wish to present arguments will have 5 minutes each. Allowed by any rebuttal the applicant is reserved for closing. If you wish to testify on this matter, please fill out a yellow public testimony card. I have 2. Those people other than the applicant and appellant that are interested in presenting oral or written argument, please indicate your desire to speak or submit written argument by raising your hands at this time. So I have Mr. Zeisk and Mr. Klenman. You both planning on still speaking? Okay, thank you. Conflicts of interest. At this time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from hearing the present matter. Councilor Smith.
None.
None, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Hensley.
No conflict.
Councilor Height.
No conflict.
And I also have no conflict. Ex parte contact. Also, if any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and substance of such contact at this time. Councilor Smith.
None.
Councilor Parker.
None.
Councilor Hensley.
None.
Councilor Height.
I visited the site a few months ago.
Thank you. And I have had working conversations on other matters, being in the mortgage industry. I've talked on occasion with Stafford Land Development, and early on, Mr. Steike and I did have conversation just about the process of this, of the whole development many months ago. So that's my piece on that. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. There'll be staff report, questions if any by the hearing body or staff. I will open the public hearing for testimony, the applicant's argument, the appellant's argument, proponents of the appeal, and then opponents of the appeal, and then the applicant's rebuttal, if any. I will then close the public hearing. Questions, if any, by the hearing body, and then discussion by the hearing body. A decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to the date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Does anyone have any questions about the procedures of the hearing? All right, seeing none. Mr. Brown, how are you this evening?
I'm just great.
Wonderful. I understand you have a staff report for us.
Yes, and I'm going to make it a brief one too. I did spend quite a lot of effort to provide a memo for you, but I'm going to make it brief tonight because there has been some continuing developments that I think might make this go a little smoother tonight. To set the stage for anybody that's listening, though, this is an appeal of a decision of the Planning Commission to approve the Beck Pond subdivision. And the appeal is very focused in nature, which is a good thing. And it's not actually about the subdivision that was approved itself. It's how it was perceived to affect a neighboring property that was not actually a part of the subdivision itself. The appellant is Mr. and Mrs. Steinke at 1547 South First Street, and they are an adjacent property owner to the subdivision that was appealed. The issue kind of centers around the fact that there were a variety of conversations between the developer and the Steinkes throughout the entire process, actually starting back when the property was adopted and the council approved a concept development plan that includes an area larger than just the subdivision that was approved.
Your Honor, may I interrupt for one moment?
Yes.
You have a member on the dais now that didn't say whether he had ex parte contact or has conflict. If you could just inquire so that he could participate, that would be nice.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. My apologies.
Things happen. So real quickly, Council President Dale, have you any conflict of interest, and do you plan to participate in this conversation?
No ex parte contact, no conflict of interest, and I do plan to participate.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Sure. So what I was saying is that the focus of the appeal, as indicated in the appeal statement, talks about 3 items that they're requesting. There is no desire to prohibit the subdivision that was approved. It's to recognize that during the process of its approval and prior to those public hearings that resulted in the subdivision approval, there were various drawings showing how roads may be extended through the Steinke property in the future. They were mere illustrations, and that concerned Mr. Steinke from the very beginning, that there were different layouts, different lot patterns, et cetera, being shown on his property. It's staff's contention that the Planning Commission's action did not in any way do anything formal to that property, but yet having those drawings out there and part of the in the approval process makes him nervous in the future as to what he might, when he is interested in developing his property, how those might affect him. So there has been an agreement reached among the developer and the appellant, and staff is in agreement with what I believe will be proposed tonight for you. So I wanted to make you know that staff is fully supportive of that. That would kind of eliminate reference to any of those shadow plats or drawings that were involving the Steinke property, giving him a clean slate at any time in the future to bring forth whatever will meet code and whatever is deemed to be approvable at that time. They will still, however, be subject to the adopted DCP plan because it covers a wide area, including the Steinke property, but with a recognition that with the approval of the Beck Pond subdivision, as the Planning Commission approved it, there actually was amendment to the council-approved DCP because the DCP showed 2 stub streets heading towards the Steinke property. The Planning Commission agreed to eliminate one of those, but did not agree to eliminate both of them. They felt like for overall circulation, implementation of the intent of the DCP as the council approved it, that there's one continuation of a street through that property was still needed. So we're, in no way are we asking or would we expect that the council amend the DCP tonight. And I don't really think that's appropriate to do either because we haven't really advertised and gone through a public hearing process to have the Planning Commission weigh in on amending a DCP in any other fashion than what they actually did, which was done through an advertised variance that made it possible for them to do that amendment. So, I can either open up, now for, and I was going to apologize in that I felt obligated in any appeal that you be supplied with all of the same information the Planning Commission had, but in reality, you don't really need to review any of that. You need to focus on the 3 items in the appellant's statement. And staff has indicated in our memo that we are fully supportive of 2 of the 3 items, even before they have reached this other agreement for a statement that they want to propose to you tonight. The 3rd item talks about an alternative solution where you're really just indicating, and the statement kind of does that you weren't approving, the Planning Commission wasn't approving anything dealing with the Steinke property. Everything was only for illustrative purposes. And this statement that they're going to indicate tonight really has to do with that and takes care of that concern that they had. So if you have questions later of me after you hear the presentations by the applicant and the appellant, at that time I'd be glad to help answer any questions you might have that are in the memorandum.
Just to boil this down, basically, everything that's in our packet this evening is somewhat null and void because of last minute
That's correct.
agreements that have been worked out.
And that's my opinion on staff level, is that it appears that all three parties of this are now in agreement as what the solution is, and we're hoping that you will agree.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Brown at this point?
Not at this point.
Okay, Brian, stay tuned, because you know us, we might be back at you. So, okay. We will turn it over to the applicant.
Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors. My name is Levi Lavasa. I am a project manager for Stafford Development Company, located at 485 South State Street, Lake Oswego, Oregon, 97034. Thank you, Brian, for going over that briefly. I'll do another quick overview just to remind everybody where we started and where we are now. You guys approved the development concept plan in February. We submitted for a subdivision application that was subsequently approved by the Planning Commission. The shadow plats, like he said, that we had shown on there for reference only are what is in contention now today, and that's why the appeal is here. We did not intend to get any sort of approval on neighboring properties. The application was for the Beck Pond subdivision only, and I think in working with the appellant and their attorney, we came up with a good statement that clarifies that we were not attempting to approve anything on the Steinke property. Looking here is the approved or adopted development concept plan. If you look in, let's see, this area, this is the Steinke property right here, and the rest of this is the development or the Beck Pond subdivision that was approved by the Planning Commission. But then after the development concept plan was approved, we decided to go in for the subdivision, and in talking with Mr. Steinke, he wished to see this road here removed because it went directly to his house, which he was hoping to possibly preserve in the future if he were to develop. So we said, okay, we'll apply for a variance and try and get some changes made so we can accommodate that. And we were able to get it approved without this southern stub, but still continued to have this western stub, 15th Avenue. And this is what it ended up looking like. And so before, this is the new version, and this is the version that we really want to be on the record as approved. And the only difference from the Planning Commission preliminary plat and this one is that now, right here, is the Steinke property, we show no continuation of 15th Avenue. Just because we want that to be its own deal in the future. We want them to have the opportunity to present their subdivision application as the way they see fit and defend it any way that they can without any preconceived notions about what could happen on their property. Because there are really several different ways that this could develop in the future. And the way we've set it up on our end, there are a couple radii at the end of 15th as it stubs into the Steinkes. That actually affords them the opportunity to either center the road right down the middle by reversing the curve really quickly, or by continuing that radius and avoiding the house and then ending up with less lots but maintaining the existing structure. So this, just approved as is no different than the Planning Commission except for off-site shadow plat references. And this is what we're hoping will be reapproved with some additional language that I will mention soon. Right here, as you can see, this is just another reference graphic, no approvals, no nothing here, just to show you this is what was indicated to me that the Steinkes wanted to see 15th Avenue extend straight through. And that is very possible with the way that we've set up the road stubbed into their property. And I think that is to their satisfaction, and they can speak to that when they come up for their time in a moment. So these no longer are important. I am going to hand out, this is a statement we came up with, sort of like an added condition to an approval. And I probably should have saved one for myself, but essentially it says that the council's decision to approve the Beck Pond subdivision, and we may need some help clarifying the language on how, from the city attorney, to how this gets adopted, as it approving the appeal or denying the appeal, but we just want to make sure that we get a statement like this, or this statement, in the record as part of the Beck Pond subdivision, just saying that none of this is impacting the Steinke's property directly, and in the future, any application that comes before you from them should be reviewed on its own merits and not on our reference materials that we submitted with our application. So we're on board with this. I think it makes sense. It's often implicit that that is the case, but eliminating it from the plan as shown here, just in the future, if there's no longer the same counselors, staff, they don't see this shadow plat and have preconceived notions of how their property was thought to develop by us. And so eliminating that, I think, takes care of that and is satisfactory to the appellant. So with that, I will reserve the rest of my time for rebuttal and let the appellant take over unless you have questions.
Two things. First off, so your statement, the council's decision to approve the preliminary plat for the Beck Pond subdivision shall not determine the configuration of any future development on the Roger and Cheryl Steinke property, tax lot 1500, on tax map 4S1E04CA. Any future development proposal for the Steinke property shall be judged upon its own merits if and when submitted, and shall not be bound by any shadow plat which has previously come before the city.
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm totally blanking on my second comment, so I will come back to that. Any other questions for Stafford at this point?
I get it.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Mr. Kleinman and Mr. Steinke, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Mayor. Jeff Kleinman, attorney for Roger and Cheryl Steinke. We have had the opportunity to work through this with the applicant and the applicant's representatives. The concern that the Steinkes had was that once you have something set down on paper, as was the case here, there's a natural tendency down the road, and it may be very many years before the Steinke property develops, that new staff will look back and see that shadow plat and say that's basically the way it's got to go. Then there's an argument. The prospective buyer/developer is in an argument with the staff. The purchase price begins to get negotiated down. We don't want that situation. So we appreciate the ability to have worked through this. We support the language that was just presented to you. And I personally don't think it matters whether it's part of an allowance of the appeal or a denial of the appeal. I suspect that, and I defer to city attorney, but I suspect the cleanest way would be to actually deny the appeal. We can't withdraw the appeal, but to deny the appeal, stating that the issues raised are resolved by this additional language. The only other thing I would suggest here, we're looking at a couple of PowerPoint slides that are part of the record, and there should be a way to make it clear for future staff looking at what was discussed today to look at the two in particular that Levi was referencing, and to include those somehow in the resolution to show that that was what was being focused upon. So,
and I will address that with our city attorney here in just a moment.
With that, don't want to waste any of the council's time tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So my question I was going to ask Levi, I will ask you, since you're now at the microphone. So this memorializes any pieces and concerns for the Steinkes in terms of what they can or will be able to do for their property.
It resolves the concerns that were raised by this application.
Okay.
So,
thank you. Yeah. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Kleinman?
Thanks so very much.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep.
So thank you for that. So proponents and opponents, Mr. Zeiss, did you want to come to the table and get a couple of concerns?
Oh, yes, thank you. I wish to thank the City Council and also our mayor for giving me the opportunity to make the following comments. And these are very important. And this does involve the Beck Pond subdivision. And there's supposed to be a total of 69 houses to be built in this subdivision. And none of my neighbors have ever been contacted by the city or the planning council about what is going to be built over here. And they are just where you see the entrance of the street from Elm Street on the bottom, and just south of that on the Elm Street there are 5 houses, and no one has ever been contacted about the subdivision, and there are some problems. Where you see the entrance of from Elm Street going into the subdivision, just on the bottom, my house is located, right on the bottom where you see Elm Street. Yes. Okay. My house is located right down there on the bottom. And I have not been, I should mention, just on the north side of it, of the street, there is a about 150-foot long concrete block wall that was built by Village on the Locks. And just beyond the wall itself, there are 35 large pine trees. That is why I bought my property right there, and 15 years ago. And by the way, as you can see, the plot line of the subdivision, you see the dark, heavy line that goes all the way right across the bottom? Yes, that one. And actually, you would think that the plot line would be right along the Elm Street. It would include the concrete block wall and the 35 large pine trees. Now, I have been told previously that the concrete block wall will remain, and only a small portion would be removed for the road itself, and also the pine trees would still remain. And now I've found out that the concrete wall is supposed to be completely eliminated, as well as all 35 tall pine trees. And I find that the subdivision itself, the layout of this plan here, is done by amateurs, because I tell you why. There's a reason that I can make that comment, because most of the lots are in sizes of 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. But there's one lot that is located there for over 13,000 square feet. Yes, and that does not make sense. And that does not look like that is being properly designed by all means. I am saying that because I have a substantial amount of experience myself. I have been senior project manager for large industrial complexes that I have been in charge of, not just here in the United States, but also in foreign countries, in India, South America, and various countries, and involving really an awful lot of money. But I would say that if I say that this has been done by amateurs, I'm not really joking either. If you really take a look at at the design and all of this, or how it was done, it does not look very good, you know. And I don't want to be critical either. That is not my intent. But at any rate, a 13,000 square foot lot compared to all the others being about 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, that is way out of line, and should have been done much better than that, definitely. And at any rate, so my house is going to be just opposite where the entrance to the subdivision is supposed to be located, and I'm not exactly happy about that. And all my neighbors do not like the plan either, and they have voiced their opinions to me, and that is why I am mentioning this to you. And I'm not trying to be critical at all, but I'm trying to be a little bit objective. And I still feel that the subdivision plot plan, the way it is laid out here, compared to Elm Street, it should actually include, would have to include either the wall, the concrete block wall, which was built by Village on the Locks, and also the 35 pine trees that are just beyond the concrete block wall, that is not included and shown here on this map. And I feel that the surveyors probably did not do a good job either, because it should have shown at least my house on that map. And I've been trying to get maps showing Elm Street and my house right here on the map, you know, and I cannot get it. I have requested it and made phone calls, and I cannot. Nobody is able to help me. They said, well, you should attend the meeting. And I can see I have these maps here. There's another one of showing more detail than the one that you see right here. There's there's another sheet too, I believe, and it shows the property in more detail. The Steinke property, as well.
Mr. Zeiske, just kind of gone over our time limit here, and I just want to make sure that I'm capturing the concerns that you have so that Levi from Stafford can address them. So the concern of the wall and pine trees being taken out, and you want to know if that's going to be happening. Your other pieces are that there's a lack of communication with housing your homes and your neighbors there, as well as perhaps I think it's just and I think Village of the Locks was notified, those homes down there were. Levi will address that. And then the plat size for those, which may be either Levi or our planning director may need to address those pieces. Was there a fourth one, or those are the three main ones?
I have carefully looked at the floor plan of the entire subdivision, and I felt that the access road could be located further to the left than what it is right now, and that would have helped a great deal, and all of my neighbors would be happy about that as well.
Okay.
And I have 4 additional neighbors that are living right over there in that area.
Okay, thank you. Let me have Levi come up and address those pieces that he can, and I appreciate you being here this evening and bringing these up, so thank you very much.
I appreciate your time too. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I don't know, I think that was the only cards that I had there, Levi, so if you want to So the wall and pine trees piece being the first one there.
Hey, again, I'm Levi Lavasa with Stafford Development Company. And really quickly, just to address those issues, I know that's not what this appeal hearing is about, but just for these folks to clarify, the tax lot here, or the future lot, the big one, the 13,000 square foot, is actually the site of an existing home that's going to remain. So we're going to preserve that home, and that is the reason that we can have a lot that is over the maximum lot size for the R1.5 zone. And the remainder of the things that look odd in this plat are actually a result of a very oddly placed zone line that you cannot be over 20 feet one side or the other. So it took some creativity. I think you might like it if we'd sat down and talked about it a little bit more. So you saw what we had to go through to get to this plan. The block wall will be minimally disturbed. We love the block wall there. We want the block wall to be there. It was built by Village on the Locks for the benefit of the Becks and their signs. So we have all that documentation, and we want to keep it though. We want the wall to stay there. It's a benefit to the neighborhood and the houses that will be backing up to Elm Street. And trees are the same. Trees are like parks. They increase the value of homes. We like to preserve trees. It's good for the community, and they look nice. They're really nice, mature trees. So we'll have them checked out by an arborist just to make sure that they are safe and will remain safe in the long term for the future homeowners here. The only other way I can see the block wall being impacted is if utilities have issues there, and we'll probably end up rebuilding a wall if we have to take parts down that we don't want to see go. So that wall is a benefit to us just as it is to you, and we hope to preserve as much of it as possible. The only other piece that might come down is down here where there will be a walking path, and I think there is a small section that'll come out so we can get people through there and to the park and the eventual Emerald Necklace. So did I miss anything else?
The communication piece with those houses there?
Yeah, so we just order the list from the title company, and then they give us a list of everybody within 500 feet. I actually think Village on the Locks was just outside of that 500-foot radius, so I don't know that they got notified of all those meetings. In the future, I will reach outside of that 500-foot radius just to address those concerns from communities like that ahead of time. One unique part about Canby is when you're sending out notifications to an apartment building, you don't send one to the one tax lot, you have to send one to every single apartment unit. And so when we sent out notices for this, we called every condominium owner and every mobile home park owner and asked for a list of addresses. So whether or not those lists were, those addresses were accurate, I cannot attest to, but those are the ones I was given by them, and those are the ones that we mailed to. I think we sent close to 500 letters out of notice for this one. So,
and again, that's our code and common practice being of 500 feet within a subdivision. That is, we can't. It's not a current expectation that be mailed out more than that. I know that my understanding is the Planning Commission might be taking a look at expanding that in a future date, but for now, so there may be a possibility that Mr. Zeisk and his neighbors may have been outside that 500-foot.
Yeah, they were probably
range, perhaps.
in.
I don't
it may
know.
have been the lists that because it might be a condominium situation. Okay. So,
I think that covers what I have here and the other pieces. So thank you. Any further follow-up or questions for Levi?
Not for Levi, for the chair.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Mr. Brown? In situations like this, when we've had a concept development plan, we've gone through public hearings, this has gone through the Planning Commission, we've heard, when we've seen this, I think this is our second or third time taking a look at this. To Mr. Zeisk's point about the ability to get information, what's that process look like for a citizen if they are wanting information about a development that's this far along in the process?
Well, I mean, you've kind of hit it on the nose right now. It's kind of after the fact. I mean, we've gone through the approval process, but Mr. Zeiss contacted me by phone, maybe 2 days ago, I believe. And this is the most detailed map that we have that we could supply to him, is exactly what you're looking at. And of course, it doesn't show the wall. And so there wasn't much else that we could supply him at this point in time. It is interesting that staff has another means of communication with surrounding property owners. We place physical signs out on the property. We were a little bit late in getting our sign out because we put it on First Street only, and then we thought about it and said, why don't we put 2 signs? So we put one on Elm Street. We immediately got many calls from the people down in the Village of the Locks. Apparently, the letter notifications, if they were problematic because of the fact they're units or whatever, or outside of the 500-foot radius, the sign worked, and we got several people contacted because of the sign that we put out. So it's kind of nice to know that each type of method of communication has some bearing in trying to make that communication. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure what you're looking for.
No, you answered my question. Again, I'm just kind of a general information piece. I know many meetings occur. We do the best we can in terms of public notice. Again, you know, here we are kind of the 11th hour on something like this. But again, we are having a lot more land development going on, and I just want to make sure that the more that we can talk about it and have people or help us and our constituents understand what the process is, I think helps us in the long run. So that's why I asked the question, since you're here and we have such a captive audience this evening. So are there any questions for Mr. Brown at this point on this?
I have one question. So about our concept development plan, so we're still being loyal to that even with this amendment. Just want to confirm that, because that Stub Street is now being essentially removed from the concept development.
I think it is important with what's being proposed tonight that we do figure out in a motion of incorporating that plat rather than the one the Planning Commission saw. The plat's the same, but showing nothing on the Steinke property. And what staff has already thought of doing, and we've set up, is a separate electronic file that says appeal final revised drawings. And we imported this drawing and the next drawing that shows how this could be going through the property, because that's the latest design that Mr. Steinke prefers. And we can put those in that file. So 10 years from now, when they're looking through our electronic file, they're going to see all the records and all the maps. But we've got several folders that say original applicant submittal, revised ones, and now the appeal revised ones. And we don't know any other way to do that other than in your final written order of tonight's meeting, you refer to those drawings that were shown at the hearing, I guess.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. So I'm going to close the public hearing. Question for you, Joe, based on where we're at here with this agreed upon piece. I need language for the council for a revised, potentially for a revised motion here. So,
well, if I think if Tyler Smith is willing to make a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we deny the appeal and affirm the Planning Commission's decision as amended with the addition of the condition proposed by the applicant and the revised plot map submitted and approved by the appellant.
Can you repeat? Can you repeat that for me?
I think it's recorded.
I know, but I need to be able to restate it into the record. Counselor Smith.
All right, let me try. Mr. Mayor, I move that we reject the appeal and affirm the Planning Commission's decision as amended to add
Hold on.
Slow. He's writing
Jeez,
slowly.
I have to write it out, sir. Affirm Planning Commission decision as...
affirm the Planning Commission's decision as amended by adding the additional condition of approval submitted by the applicant.
I need to learn shorthand.
And adopting the revised plat map. Is that about the same as I did the first time?
Thank you, sir. You have seconded that?
A second again.
So the motion's been made by Counselor Smith, seconded by Counselor Hensley to deny the appeal and affirm the Planning Commission's decision as amended by adding the additional condition of approval submitted by the applicant, and adopting the revised plot map. Discussion. Any discussion?
I'd like to commend everybody on them fixing the problem themselves.
Yeah.
No, I second those thoughts as well. I appreciate, Mr. Steinke and Stafford Land Company coming together and working this out. I appreciate that piece of it. So again, thank you guys for that.
Steinke should teach lessons on public engagement. He's been here every meeting for how long, studying this process and monitoring it every day, and he obviously got an outcome that he's happy with.
Perfect. Okay, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. That motion to deny passes 5-0.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
I would move to pull from the table ordinance 1489.
Now that Dale's back, yeah.
Needs a second.
Can I?
I'll second for purposes of discussion.
There's actually no debate to pull from the table, but.
All right, so the motion's been moved to bring back into conversation or in the agenda this evening. Ordinance 1489, amending Camden Municipal Code, Chapter 9.48050A regarding noise variance exemption and declaring an emergency. Discussion?
I would propose we do
Back
it.
on the table?
Can we do it later, like at the end of the agenda?
I don't think you're allowed to debate.
I think it's a non-debatable
I don't
motion.
think you're allowed to debate it.
It's non-debatable once it's out there? Oh.
Right. So
You can debate the merits, but not the pull from the table or not.
We can debate the ordinance, we can't debate the motion to pull from the table.
all right, so
It's separate and vote.
okay, so motion's been made to bring it back into the agenda for conversation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No, I don't want to do it now, actually.
Counselor Tickett.
What happened?
Right. So what happened was during the conversation, the decision to table the ordinance till next meeting when you and Counselor Spoon were going to be here to have a further dialogue and have more of the council included in the conversation.
Okay.
So in terms of recapping that conversation was looking at the ordinance and changing, leaving it as is in terms of the city, school district, and Canby Fire not having to come before the council for a noise variance in regards to the fireworks piece. And so that's where the conversation was going, and it was tabled until there was more councilors here.
Oh, okay. And so by taking it off the table now,
Means
it's being discussed now instead of put
Right,
off
we
till
had
next
the
meeting.
public hearing, went through all that, some discussion, and then it was tabled, and the objective was to put it back on the agenda next meeting. But you are here now, and I guess you now decide whether or not you feel you have enough information based on the report and the packet and my quick synopsis.
Mayor, if I may too, to add to the synopsis is there is a first football game coming up that will most likely not be able to have a variance if they were to seek one separately, because the variance process itself takes a notice requirement and a certain amount of legwork. So that also kind of colors the speed with which you might want to address this issue.
And I'm super happy to take this off the table, Greg. I just don't want it to happen now. I want it to happen at the end of item 8E, Mayor. Does that make sense? After we've resolved all of our other business for the night? So it's the order that concerns me.
Let's cross this motion, and then if you want to move it later in the agenda, then I
Okay.
suppose you can make that motion to do that.
Okay.
So all I have not been privy to is any public testimony.
Correct.
Okay.
Which, actually, the one testifying person has a letter in the packet.
Ah, very good. Then I'm comfortable with pulling it back on.
You're comfortable pulling it back on the conversation?
So we'll at least get it back on.
Okay.
We can decide order.
Okay. Counselor Height, do you have then a question on order, or do you want to request?
Yeah, I would request we do it after we've taken care of all the other business of the night so that the rest of the audience can leave and we can do this, or whoever wants to stay, because it's awfully late right now. So that's my reasoning. Yeah.
I look to...
No objection, that's fine.
No objection.
Okay.
Thanks.
Then we will add that back to the agenda, and we will move it down to the end. Okay.
Very good.
Great. So we'll move into resolutions and ordinances. Ms. Schaefer.
Okay. The first item we have is Resolution 1296. This is adopting an interagency agreement between the City of Canby and Canby Swim Club Incorporated and repealing Resolutions 1147 and 1160. And Eric Leitinen is here if you have any questions.
This is an annual agreement that comes to you, and so you should be pretty familiar with it.
Yes, and given that, Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve a Resolution 1296, a resolution adopting an interagency agreement between the City of Canby and the Canby Swim Club Incorporated and repealing Resolutions 1147 and 1160.
Motion has been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Parker to approve Resolution 1296, adopting an interagency agreement between the City of Canby and the Canby Swim Club Incorporated and repealing Resolutions 1147 and 1160. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 5-0.
The next item we have is Ordinance 1488. This is amending Ordinance 1427 regarding marijuana definitions. This is before you for second reading.
And this was brought to you last time at some length, if most of you recall. This was a way in which we were trying to amend the ordinance banning marijuana in town to leave a carve-out for industrial hemp, mostly because it follows federal and state law that have already carved out these as legal agricultural products. So we just wanted to we want to follow the spirit of the ban of recreational marijuana while not stepping on the toes of federal and state agriculture. So that was the attempt, and hopefully and in speaking with counsel who represents somebody who's interested in going through the industrial hemp agricultural process here in town, it would allow for them to get a business license, and then it's still up to them to follow all the rules and the laws.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt Ordinance 1488, an ordinance amending Ordinance 1427 regarding the definition of marijuana.
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Height to approve Ordinance 1488, amending Ordinance 1427 regarding marijuana definitions. Discussion?
Mayor, I did have one question, I guess, on this. I did watch all of the testimony on this and am up to speed on what you all discussed last week, or last meeting. But what I did not hear answered, and I have questions, it sounded to me there was a number of questions that some of you were struggling with the dichotomy of still being federally registered as a class whatever, Schedule 1 narcotic, but then there was also statements that it wasn't in violation of federal law. And it seemed to me that I wanted to be perfectly clear, I guess with regards to these folks' business that's going to be taking place in Canby, is the only business that they have that's going to be taking place in Canby would be the industrial hemp and not their other process. I looked at their other, their main, I guess, existing business in Tigard, and it's testing the, THC-laden marijuana plants, and they do that there. And so I wanted us to be clear that it's our, if it's in fact our intent to approve CBDs that are derived from industrial hemp, but we would not approve and not allow CBDs that were derived from THC-laden plants to be processed in Canby. I thought that was a way to clarify what I thought you all had understood in the discussions last meeting.
So break that down. So
my understanding is they're going to be a processing facility, and they're going to be processing to make CBD oils. I want to know, are they going to be processing only hemp, low THC content to make CBDs, and not the high THC content cannabis that would be, in their other facilities?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Smith, for your record, Ross Day, I represent MRX Technologies. Councilor Smith, we will only be processing industrial hemp, period. Okay. That falls within whatever that definition is, which is 0.3% or less.
Okay.
That's it, and nothing else. I want to be really clear on that, and nothing, unless you change the law, then, but right now that's it.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does that satisfy that?
And that's the intent of what we're doing here? Is
correct.
Okay, great. I'm on board.
Yeah, we had a lengthy conversation, as you know. I don't know if members of the audience know, but we must have spoken probably an hour at our last meeting. And so I anyway feel very comfortable with the decision we made. And yeah, there we go.
All right, so this is up for second reading. Roll call vote.
Councilor Smith?
Aye.
Councilor Parker?
Aye.
Councilor Hensley? Aye. Councilor Dale?
Aye.
Councilor Height?
Aye.
Great, that motion passes 5-0.
The next...
Item C, we're moving to the end of the line. Kim?
The next item we have is Ordinance 1490. This is adopting a franchise agreement with MCI Metro Access Transmission Services Corporation, DBA Verizon Access Transmission Services, a non-exclusive franchise to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications network and provide telecommunications services within the city of Canby. This is before you for second reading. Also, the testimony card that you have, he left.
Okay.
And that gentleman had actually testified before at first reading too. I'm not sure if his testimony would be the same or not, but if you just recall. This is a situation in Canby where telecommunications facilities are governed, that exist in the right-of-way of the city are governed by our code, and they are treated on a level playing field, and they're non-exclusive, so that people who come and apply for them, if they follow our code and sign up basically for the same contractual franchise agreement, then they get to be in our ground and, get to put facilities there and use facilities there and pay the same amount to do so. And so this is yet another company that is coming on board that wants to potentially be in our marketplace for telecommunications. And we therefore are urging you to allow them to do so, because we allow everybody else to do so in the same manner.
Right, and I also received an email from this gentleman earlier this week who appeared interested in being selective in who was allowed to operate within the right-of-way, which of course we can't do. We have to provide equal opportunity for businesses meeting all other criteria to operate within the city's right-of-way.
I think we also had testimony from another person at the last meeting, and I think that information was dispersed to all of y'all.
Yes,
for
concerning Wi-Fi radiation.
Yes. Okay, great.
The letter that, Mr. Mayor, the letter that Mr. Robinson refers to, the entire council was carbon copied on. And as such, being a public record, I forwarded it to the CEO of Direct Link and encouraged him to contact us if he had any concerns. So
And I don't think we had any.
I received none. Rick didn't? Okay.
Okay.
I appreciate that citizen Tony reaching out and giving us that lengthy letter, and good job forwarding that to him. Yeah.
Great. Motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance 1490, an ordinance granting to MCI Metro Access Transmission Services Corporation, doing business as Verizon Access Transmission Services, a non-exclusive franchise to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications network and provide telecommunications services within the city of Canby, Oregon.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Height to approve ordinance 1490, adopting a franchise agreement with MCI Metro Access Transmission Services Corporation, DBA Verizon Access Transmission Services, a non-exclusive franchise to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications network and provide telecommunications services within the city of Canby. Roll call vote.
Counselor Smith?
Aye.
Counselor Parker? Aye. Counselor Hensley? Aye. Counselor Dale?
Aye.
Counselor Height?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
The next one we have is ordinance 1491. This is authorizing a contract with Curran McLeod Incorporated, consulting engineers for engineering services for North Maple Street reconstruction and declaring an emergency.
Yes, I can speak to this issue if that's okay. We've been working with the North Maple Street community for about 18 months now to, in an attempt to secure right-of-way to do street improvements and sidewalk improvements from Northeast 10th to, and it's my recollection, it's Northeast 14th Avenue, which is the boundary between the city and the way on North Maple Street. We're requesting approval of our contract for engineering service with Curran McLeod, the amount of $103,200 for engineering construction services. We are making progress on this project. It's been a bit challenging, but we're anxious to be able to construct the improvements in that area in front of our Maple Street Park. We think it'll be a substantial improvement.
The E-Clause?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. We are working in an attempt both to secure the easements, which Curran McLeod is working with us on in the right-of-way, and also to begin engineering and design work so that we can go to bid as quickly as possible after January 1st. So the project can be completed in the 2018-19 fiscal year. We do have it budgeted.
That section is city-owned, not county-owned.
That is the city-owned section.
And that's why we can take action.
That's why we're moving it ahead so
Good.
much.
That's exciting. Good job. Thank you. I mean, I'm sure Mr. Canberra is excited too. I know he's a resident. Sorry to call you out. But I think he's been working on that too.
And I would thank Jennifer Klein for the great work that she's done as well.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 1491, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Curran McLeod Incorporated, consulting engineers for engineering services for North Maple Street reconstruction and declaring an emergency, to come up for second reading August 15th, 2018.
And may I make one additional comment? I did not see Bob behind Scott. And Bob Canberra, who is a member of the Traffic Safety Commission, has been very instrumental in working with the local property owners in securing the easements that will allow us to construct the sidewalks on that street. So, Bob, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Parker to approve ordinance 1491, authorizing a contract with Curran McLeod Incorporated Consulting Engineers for engineering services for North Maple Street reconstruction and declaring an emergency, and coming up for second reading on August 15th, 2018. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That passes 5-0. Should we tackle item C, Kim?
Are you moving it to the end of the agenda? I thought it was being moved to the end of the agenda.
Can we move it to after new business? Is that possible? Or do we have to?
We have somebody from the Parks Board here.
There are more people here for parks, you know.
It's your guys' call.
I'd still like to.
It's resolutions and ordinances. I think it's appropriate to do in resolutions and ordinances.
Well, let's, fine, then let's take this, since we are in resolutions and ordinances, let's take item C and handle it.
Okay, the next item we have is Ordinance 1489. This is amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 9.48.050A regarding noise variance exemptions and declaring an emergency.
Great. Thank you, Kim. So again, just as a recap, brought this item back in for conversation tonight because of the arrival of Council President Dale. We have had a public hearing on the matter. We had heard from the facilities manager for the school district on the tenure of the program, their desire to see it continue. And we also had Paul address the council, again reiterating the fact, the impact it does have on him and his health, and his letter and a letter from his doctor are in our packets. I will leave it at that. So,
Your Honor, I could add, maybe supplement
Please.
my understanding of the evidence as well, which was, and reject it or accept it, but that the school district is looking at less concussive explosions, so that won't have as much of an impact on the neighborhood, but still looks to do that type of firework, maybe just a lesser version of it. And then there was some discussion about whether or not we should amend it to not give them all, any event that they want, but maybe limit it to the football or not. And so that was where the discussion seemed to land.
I guess they added fireworks this year to graduation, so it expanded the scope of where they use fireworks at. So the adage was to limit it to just the football games, or to just eliminate them entirely and have them come
and do a variance every time.
Or come in early enough in August to ask for the specific dates in one swoop.
Okay.
So there, Council President Dale is caught up. We have a motion on the table, so discussion.
I think it would be a travesty to, eliminate that, festivities that our city engages in, the variance process. I suspect it would be approved, and it would be just an additional burden on the school and ourselves to go and redo that every year. If something the school or the fire district or ourselves was doing that was causing too much of a commotion annually and became a problem, we would easily be able to recognize that and see if there was sort of the sky is falling mentality, that if they're going to do it for football games and graduation, what's next and how far are they going to go. I don't see that being a slippery slope argument that is realistic. So I think that them having to come in and get a variance this year is almost too late. It would mess with this year's calendar, so we need to resolve it tonight. I like the way it's currently written. The school and the fire district don't need to be coming in, I don't believe, in asking for variances for those things that are our community events. And so I would ask, I would support as written by staff.
Okay. Yes.
I share many of Councilor Smith's sentiments. The football games have been a long-standing tradition. All the neighbors, most of them are, I think, probably long-standing neighbors and are familiar with this. I am concerned with the addition of the graduation, because that's not been a tradition, and they seem to have added it. So I do have concerns about whether or not they would add other events. So I would be in favor of adding an amendment to the school district line that limited them to the football games. I would be in favor of that caveat.
And then, Councilor Dale, my input earlier when we had the discussion was I'm conflicted about this decision, because I see both sides very clearly, and it's like tradition and greatest good and greatest benefit, and what does that mean, and neighbors and PTSD sufferers and people with pain, and in the end, I'm going to go with the humanity of it. And if it bothers me if some of our population are experiencing pain, even though I don't like to sacrifice the tradition, I sure hope the school district can work with Western Fireworks and find quiet ones, but I don't feel comfortable like pinning my hat on that or counting on that. So in the meantime, I would vote this down and have them come back for a variance if they really want to let off the fireworks this fall. So that was my opinion.
So okay, thank you for that. Are you asking for an amended motion for?
Yeah, I'm asking to amend it to include the restriction to just the football games for Canby School District.
Is that a motion you're putting on the table to add that language?
I move that we add the language that restricts the Canby School District events using fireworks to fire up football games.
Okay. Second to that amended piece?
Awesome.
Okay. Discussion on that? Add it? Any discussion?
I just think that I don't want them to expand the scope. I mean, if they're already working to lessen the boom, so to speak, that's great, and I'm glad that they're going to work with the fireworks company for that to kind of help alleviate some of the neighbors' concerns. But my concern is them to continue expanding the scope in which they use the fireworks. So I would like to limit it to what they've already been doing for years.
Okay. So all in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No, nay.
So you're not, okay.
I'll support the amended motion too.
Say again?
I'll support the amendment.
Okay, so that amendment passes 4-1. 4-1. Okay, so with that amended language being put in there, so all those in favor of passing the ordinance with the amended piece of limiting it to the football games, all those in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
So that passes 4-1.
Okay, so the new language would be almost sounds produced by sound amplifying equipment between 7 and 12 midnight local time, and sounds created by the discharge of fireworks at football games. And that would be the new 9.48.050A4 and the new 9.48.050A14 would be sounds including the discharge of fireworks and other explosive devices created from, and it says city and Canby Fire District sanctioned events. Is that still okay with you? And I removed Canby School District.
Okay. The first one needed to have, depending on how the definitions, I don't know exactly what they let off, but it had fireworks and the explosions. So does the first one need to have
fireworks and other explosive devices?
Right. The cannon's not a firework, right? It's something else.
Right, it's an explosive or a, yeah.
Thank you for that.
And where does the language there, Mr. Robinson, about limiting it to the football games, is that in?
It would say, and sounds created by the discharge of fireworks and other explosive devices at football games. That would be added to the 4.
Number 4. Okay, thank you.
And that will come up for second reading next meeting so that you can have a double look at it.
Yeah, this resets the reading clock.
Yeah.
One other edit, by the way, it's 12 a.m. midnight, not 12 p.m. Because 12 p.m. is technically noon.
That's noon.
Yeah.
So just, it's,
It is.
it's a technicality.
It's already in there
That's
wrong.
12 hours difference.
Yeah, it's, I remember reading it.
24 hours a day.
Yeah, that's funny.
Thank you.
I didn't pick up on that either. That's
What?
funny.
Good eye.
That was an English major.
It's just a broader
It's already caught up
So
on that too.
Mr. Robinson, you're good on the language then to make it correct for the second?
Yeah, I
next
had
meeting?
actually listed 7 to 12 midnight, so without the AM or PM identified.
Okay, great.
So,
Thank you for that.
local time.
Thank you all. Appreciate
I think we
that.
have it.
Councilor Height, will you find out for me when the first school board meeting is and let me know?
Sure.
I would appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Well, it's not, they do it year-round. July is the only month that they do
They're
not.
back in
So
session.
back August, like third Thursday, but I can email you the exact.
If you would do that, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
During the motion, we did the first motion.
Okay, moving into new business, recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Mr. Truewasser, thank you for being here.
What a trooper. Wow. And Mr. Sassy as well.
Well, in the interest of time, Mayor Hodson and City Council, you have the recommendations. I'd like to just give you a little background of how we came up with these recommendations and what we think for the future and a tour that we plan to have in September. We came up with the recommendations using a consensus process where each of our board members came in with simply three recommendations that they would like to make to the council. They presented their recommendations with very brief remarks as to why they were thinking this was an important recommendation without discussion of the other members. They were all charted, and at the conclusion of this period, we then combined like or very similar recommendations from the various people, and then we had about an hour's worth of discussion, and we came up with this set of recommendations. We broke it into two parts. Some assumptions that we think that some assumptions that we would really hope that the City Council would take under advisement and come up with some reasonable method to address the issues of funding of parks for the long term, not just the 5-year fee where we got $5 per month per family, but something in the long term. There was a lot of discussion about, okay, when the Urban Renewal District funds retire and the city coffers are in much better shape, that they reinstate some of the money that has been removed from the parks budget, and it's now being addressed with the $5 fee, but that's only for 5 years. Issues with allocation of time of the park employees for other uses in the city, not park related, but it's park related time, and I understand that is going to be addressed. We do think that there needs to be a limited update to the master plan, specifically to what we can do to create a district that would be small enough to generate enough funds that we could use to fund the parks and possibly build some community center sports complex within the city. There's been a lot of interest in that. The second portion of the recommendations was we need to do something. Basically, everybody agreed that there needs to be something done in the city so that the people that are paying the $5 can say, yes, we did fix up the parks, although most of the people did not feel the parks in 2 of the surveys in the last 5 years were in that bad a shape. And we ended up with the 2 items. One was the construction of a splash pad, which is a very low maintenance item, but something that is very popular in the metro area, Clackamas, Multnomah, Washington, and Marion counties. There's almost 40 splash pads. And I don't know if I've counted all of them. And Canby has none. And they're extremely popular. People travel great distances to go to them to find that amenity just for the summer months. You know, it's basically May through September, sometimes into October, and it's low cost, and we just need to find an appropriate place to locate one and hopefully install one. We also had many other recommendations for the fish eddy, going blank here. Improving the fish eddy property, in connection to Eco Park, putting in a water sport complex, but we did the dog park. There was a whole series of other things that we really would like to see the city do, and that we have a lot of interest in those areas. But we did finally decide that constructing the park for the Aubin Farm subdivision that was approved 10 years ago, and it's been sitting there idle for 10 years. The kids that were in that subdivision 10 years ago are now teenagers or off to college, not even ever going to be used the park. The city accepted the land in lieu of SDC funds, and with the assumption that the city would build a park, and we keep delaying it. And we said, this is enough, we need to do that. If we're taking property in lieu of SDC funds, assuming that we are going to build a park on the ground that was dedicated, we need to do it. And so now I can answer questions if you have them.
Well, Mark, thank you for being here this evening and hanging out with us, and thank you for being here. The Parks Board has been very, very busy, and it's been a lot of conversation, and I appreciate getting to this point. Yeah, this is helpful. This helps us a lot. So just for the Parks Board and for the council, so just action already being taken. I've asked city manager and staff to take a look at the previously done feasibility analysis of the park funding. So looking at the school district down to what the UGB is, down to what Canby city limits are in terms of that analysis and what that would look like from a longer term funding piece beyond the park maintenance fee. And then in regards to these action items here under the assumptions piece, we've already put in a work session for us as a council to go through these recommendations and how we want to proceed going forward so that we can keep the momentum that we have going, and that we can then start tasking either staff and or the parks group to start putting things into action and have them get to work on whatever action items we come up with so that they can start working towards getting these things completed, and we can start getting some things going and can show a result of the $5 park maintenance fee and just our parks focus in general. Already, again, as I talked about at the last meeting, the things that we have done, new public works director, we have 3 or 5 new parks people added to the city team. So the deferred maintenance pieces are being addressed and taken care of. We are in high park usage right now. Waite Park this past weekend got, just pummeled between the 3-on-3 basketball tournament, downtown activities, movie in the park, etc. Canby Community Park has just been also it's being well loved right now in the warm season. We've added porta potties down there for the influx of people. I literally saw a traffic jam at the entrance to Community Park as there were cars lined up all the way down the ramp waiting to get out, and cars waiting to get in and just get down 13th just to get home. So our parks are being heavily used right now. So right now, I don't know how much deferred maintenance is occurring, but I know that Jeff and the parks team are getting after that. And I've asked that Jeff include in his bi-monthly reports to us, just addressing the parks pieces that are being taken care of and being moved forward on. So we are putting a lot of effort and focus on the parks piece right now. So those are the steps out of the recommendation of the Parks Board that are already in place. So questions for Mark? Yes, Councilor Parker.
Well, I appreciate the work. As I mentioned to you in my email, that next to the Planning Commission, the Parks Board probably has the opportunity to make the biggest legacy planning for this city. All the parks that we've had for a long time, so anything new will last for a long time. I've asked our Public Works Director for some additional information that she hasn't had time to turn in, specifically on your recommendations with the Splash Park and on the Auburn Park. of what the estimated maintenance hours would be for each of those. And I haven't seen those yet.
Matilda has the numbers based on the expenditure for the type of facility that we would put in.
Well, the Public Works Director does not have that.
Well, the Public Works, but Matilda has
she's the
the
boss of the people doing that, so we need to respect her authority in that. Because to me, there's a little bit of a formula here. It's kind of like going to the grocery store with a budget, and if I've got $10, I'm not going to be buying $12 worth of groceries. And if we have excess maintenance capacity of let's say 500 hours, we may not want to do 2 park projects that have 700 hours of estimated maintenance. So there's a bit of a math equation that I haven't seen yet, that I need to take a look at. The second thing, and we've been at this 4 hours tonight, so I don't want to go too deep into it. I think we can pick this up at another meeting. But is this idea of getting something going and getting something out there, and I'm hearing some buzz about that. And maybe it was updated at the council meeting that I wasn't at, but the last information I heard was that we would not have any excess capacity to apply to new parks for 18 months. Is that your understanding as well?
We basically said that it's going to take 2 years to cover the backlog, but that gives us 3 other years of additional maintenance. Even if we say, hey, we're going to build these things, the earliest we could do the splash pad is going to be next summer. So we're already into almost out of the maintenance fee. And we might have to extend the maintenance portion 3 or 4 months beyond the 2 years, but we can get something in.
You and I are in agreement. I hear this term of let's do something right now in order to show citizens.
There's nothing that can happen instantly.
Thank you.
In a city environment. We understand that.
And the second thing is, and you and I might have a little bit of disagreement on this, is on the master plan. You used the term limited. I want a comprehensive plan. I've read our 18-year-old master plan now 3 times, and what I find absent, of course, is the Traverso property. That was never anticipated.
We don't have the Traverso property yet. We have the extension of the logging road, but we do not have the Traverso property proper.
2 different ones, great.
There's 2 different pieces of property, and the big piece, the huge regional water, where you can get a.
We will in the next 18 years.
We haven't got it, and it's been pulled from the table at the moment.
All right. Well, you have information that has not been provided to me by staff, so I am at a disadvantage. My point is that we may not do another master plan for another 18 years if we follow our routine. And I would like to make sure that when we go out to the market and hire a consultant, we take a look at all of the possibilities. In particular, our river access. I was rereading, and I mentioned in my email to you, the Wayside Park 2004 plan. And suddenly, mysteriously, in 2014, all of that progress stopped. There were several action plans that were supposed to be taking place during the past couple of years, which have not happened.
Because we were told we couldn't spend any money.
Okay, again, part of this may need to have some documentation so that we're all of one mind. I didn't see that memo. So we've got some things that we need to clear up on this, and I would like to have a new master plan. Take a look at our rivers, and take a look at how we can have access to them. I'm looking at a very robust type of master plan review.
The Parks Board would be in total agreement with that. If we had our choice, that would have been number 1, but we knew we could not afford it with the budget we have. We're talking major dollars to do that piece. We had to put something in that we knew we could afford, and limited scope, but of enough interest that either we promise something but we don't want to deliver, or something we know is going to be very, very popular and overused. I know that the park in Malala, we were there last week with our granddaughters. There must have been 100 people there.
But thank you. That's all.
Councilor Smith.
I did have one question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I'm just curious about the suggestion number 2, the Autumn Farms Park. 2 months ago, we had a joint meeting and talked about it. It wasn't on that list. I don't even recall. It may have been on it over the years in Planning Commission that the Autumn Park Farms, any kind of a park there, was ever, high on any priority list, and all of a sudden it comes in now for the first time as a number 2 priority. Can you tell me about the genesis of how that made its way into priority number 2?
It's been there for, I've been on the board off and on for the last 25 years, pretty much since I was even before the board on the Canby Pool Advisory Board, which was a non-city group. And when this property came on and they said, hey, this is a property we can develop, we assumed that, 4 or 5 years down the line, which is usually about the time it takes us to get something in, get it into the process, and then get it designed, public input on what amenities they want in the park. We typically, Locust Street took us 5 years.
Maybe I misspoke. My question is just, how did this leapfrog? It seems to me, maybe I'm wrong, it seemed to me this leapfrogged other things that were on the list and became suddenly priority number 2 when it hasn't been. That
was the consensus of of our entire board when we had everybody present things. That was, we need to live up to our commitments. If the Planning Commission says, hey, we're taking this piece of land for a future park in lieu of SBC funds, you're giving us the property, we'll do the construction. That's pretty much the assumption that is made. That after 10 years, I think it's time that we start moving on it.
Tyler, it was called something else. It's sometimes called the Simnett Park, and it's sometimes called the Auburn Farms. But that joint work session we had upstairs with these guys, that was definitely one of their top 5 when they had those 5. Yeah, so it's been on the books a while. But we can talk about this during our work session. Thanks a lot for presenting. I appreciate your expertise. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Treewasser? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for waiting until the end of the evening.
Yeah.
It's definitely past my bedtime.
But you had an entertaining night, haven't you?
You don't have to answer that.
Before we go into...
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. City Administrator, Business and Staff Reports. I was remiss. I have two additional items, sir. First one is... came to me today. I'm going to put it in your guys' capable hands. What's going out around now is just a city map and a layout of our parks. Was a fascinating read today on our parks, and then the history of some of our parks, as well as a summary of parks and recreation planning activities that went out to the Park Advisory Board today. I will forward that to you all as well, so you can have that for your reference. The chair of the Park Advisory Board made reference to our joint tour coming up. Okay. So our August 21st, there's a joint park tour with the Park Advisory Board and the City Council, and we have homework in preparation of that. So what I just passed around to you is kind of the park standards, national park standards, kind of a snippet of each of the 6 categories of the states of parks that they use to judge the service levels of our parks. So your homework prior to that is to go and visit several of our city parks, and based on, let's say you go to Legacy Park and you read the description for Mode 1, state-of-the-art maintenance applied to a high-quality, diverse landscape, usually associated with high-traffic urban areas such as public squares, malls, government grounds, or high visitation parks. So if you felt that Legacy Park falls in mode 1, then write it in the lines next to it. If you feel that you want to visit the lovely Feist Park on Teakwood there by the junior high, that might be mode 6. Minimum maintenance level, low visitation natural area, or large urban parks which are undeveloped. So you would write down Feist Park in that number. So please take a moment, visit a couple of our city parks, rate them, write them by the numbers, and turn it into City Hall so that Matilda can tabulate that for our tour. And then we will have some dialogue with our parks maintenance manager, Mr. Schneider, about what he feels those parks are truly rated at.
Am I misreading this? It looks to me like these are more just classifications and not rankings, right?
No,
these are really just
They're
categories.
classifications to give us a little bit.
We're just supposed to figure out where we think each park falls.
We want what you think the park is at now and what you would like to see it at.
Thank you, sir. So where is it now and where do you want it to be? Okay. Two ratings, okay.
Because I'm thinking the Simnett property would have one designation for what it is now.
Because it's
And where you-
undeveloped.
Right, undeveloped, and where would you like it to be?
There we go. All right.
Perfect.
And what time is this August 21st?
August 21st, 6 o'clock, Cat Bus will pick us up in front of City Hall,
Okay.
and we'll go visit a number of these parks.
Great.
And you want to see if
Not
there's
September
capacity?
18th anymore.
No, it's,
I had September.
I have September 18 was the last.
Yeah.
sorry,
18th, that's what I.
Really? Oh.
okay,
I've got September 18th, 6:30.
then I am totally wrong.
September
And
18th.
Mayor, do you want to see if there's capacity for any of the bike committee members or interest?
Yes, I will elevate that to Matilda, and we'll see. So sorry, August 21st is when they're due for the Park Advisory Board meeting. So you need to have it in so that they can look at it.
Gotcha.
By the August meeting. September is our van tour.
Okay.
I'm mistaken. So yes, I will make a note to reach out to Matilda if we have room for bike and ped people to join us on that tour.
There's going to be people from the Mike and Ed, from the Historical Society that would like to attend. So,
Yep.
Bigger bus.
if you all, the city council don't all attend, they at least need their ratings and their input into that donation.
Okay. So it sounds like we will use the larger cat bus for our tour. So, and then the other piece I had for you, Rick, is Franklin Graham is coming to town here in a couple weeks.
No, this is Sunday.
This Sunday.
Is it this Sunday?
The fairground.
To the fairgrounds? Are we aware and are we prepared for the traffic that's going to?
I wasn't even aware of it.
What's he been getting at his other tour stops? Do we know how many people?
I have no idea.
He's been selling
He
it.
could pull thousands or 20s of thousands.
Yeah.
And that's Sunday?
It is Sunday.
Evening, yeah.
I'll check with our public works, but no, we're not aware, and our law enforcement.
That's the fairgrounds.
At the fairgrounds, yeah.
It's
So,
at 7:30.
and maybe they're already prepared for that?
They must
And
be.
maybe Clackamas County Sheriff Department is already on that? I just don't know what.
I'll ask
They usually take the point on the fairgrounds, the Clackamas County Sheriffs, but if there's such overspill, obviously, we would want to help out with roads.
Yes.
Won't quite be quite as rowdy as fair time.
That's what
Won't
my
be
question.
rowdy,
Do
but
we
it could be
expect it to be
very,
traffic
very busy.
It could be very busy. So,
Be very polite.
this would be a great opportunity to
polite
stop them
Yes.
in one way and out through downtown.
Oh, there you go.
We wanted that for years.
I keep trying.
I said everybody will be close.
All right, so I will now turn it over to you, Rick, for any city administrator news, now that I've just thrown that hand grenade on your plate.
Just a couple things, and I shouldn't be doing this, but I think these are important. We did do a preliminary walk around with an architectural firm on the the improvements to the community room at the swim center that you approved in the budget, and on the arch that we're contemplating construction on Grant Street between the railroad tracks and First Avenue. He is going to be preparing some preliminary estimates of cost to do the architectural and engineering design work on it, and we'll get back with us. It will, I believe, fall within my authority threshold, so we'll be able to fast-track approval and get moving on these projects. My goal is to have them under construction, both of them under construction, by next spring, so that they can be done in this fiscal year when we have the budget. The only other item is that in response to an email suggestion that I received from Councillor Parker, I did contact Direct Link, and this is about the availability of Wi-Fi service in our parks, looking at the potential of Waite Park as a testing grounds for public access to Wi-Fi, and the contact that I had, John Love, is speaking with the VP who is in charge of these types of programs. We'll get some ideas of cost, what the other implications are, what the complexities are, and whether it's even possible to serve given the infrastructure that's available at that specific location, and I'll come back to you with further information as I get it. I would also like to, because I also think it's relevant, just say that we are keeping very close track of the hours spent on city property that is not park property versus city property that is park property. Our park staff is maintaining a record of the hours spent in each of the properties. Also, we transferred more than 2 full-time employees to the Parks Department to care for non-parks properties back in January when we started this whole conversion. So there is no intent and there is no attempt at maintaining any city properties with funds derived from the park maintenance fund. I just think I want to make that crystal clear. That has never been the intent, and we in fact are bending over backwards to make sure that's not the outcome.
And then I might have one addition that's kind of appropriate to all this discussion, which is our community park has been highly, highly used, and I know we've discussed that, Mayor, but just to remind the public, because we do have signage on there, and maybe we need to increase the signage a little bit, but in our parks we're not supposed to have alcohol. And it's actually a crime in Canby, so you don't want to go committing crimes by having alcohol in the park, right? So it's not just a violation, it's not just a ticket, it's an actual crime, and that's, you know, surprising some people when they're caught with a giant cooler of beer because they're trying to enjoy, you know, down by the river, but it's a park. And then the other thing is, don't make the parking situation into a parking lot, because we've had near drownings and we needed emergency vehicles down there, and people were in the way and the emergency vehicles couldn't get down there fast enough. Luckily the person, you know, didn't actually end up harmed in the end, but the idea is clear the way, you know, park in parking places only. Don't park in non-parking places, because there is access issues. When it gets that busy, there are emergent situations, and so emergency vehicles have to get down there. So those are just reminders.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Great. Anything else? Kim, anything from you? We're running down the dice. No, I'm not quite there. Citizen input, last minute for any further comments or... Nope. Okay. Now I'm ready for action review, Kim.
You have approved the consent agenda. You've denied Appeal 1802. You've adopted Resolution 1296. You've adopted ordinances 1488 and 1490. You've approved ordinances 1489 as amended and ordinance 1491 to come up for second reading on August 15, 2018.
Great. Thank you, Kim. There is no executive session tonight, correct, Joe?
There is none.
Great. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Good night, Canby. Thank you.